Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the stream. My name's Craig. This is Gonzo, and we together are part of the German Football Spotlight channel. We're trying something different today. We're experimenting because that's how you become better in life, right? You try different things. So instead of just, spending hours and hours and hours trying to script a Hollywood-style reaction video to all the Bundesliga action from the previous weekend, I thought, do you know what? Let's try it as a live stream because we can always get some VOD content out of it later. So you get a double whammy, right? You beautiful people out there that are either viewing now or from the future, then you get a double whammy. So again, this is a reaction to all the Bundesliga action from match day 29. The pivotal point is obviously going to be the KLASSIKER, and what a game that was, by the way. And a slight side note, yeah. If you go into this channel expecting, very precise data analytics, which is a hallmark of what we're trying to achieve with this channel, it's probably not going to happen in this stream and future. It might be in the VOD, but right here, right now, no. This is us just trying to react like normal people do on YouTube. Again, we're trying something new. We can only use it as a learning platform for future. Anyway, right, you get the point. Right, so Bundesliga. Bundesliga. Match day 29 is just gone. Obviously, the action started on Freitag with Wolfsburg playing Leipzig. Now, we had that prediction down, I believe, if I just quickly look here, which you shouldn't... Oh, maybe you can, actually. Let me just quickly look at this. See? Not as slick as what we usually are. What am I trying to do? Right, let's try and figure this one out. Right. So, yeah. Oh, no, that's the wrong week. So we had that Wolfsburg Leipzig on Freitag. We had that down as being a 1-0 away win to Leipzig. And then when they scored after, 11? I tell you what, let's jump into the trickery, right? My face will remain here, but just 2 seconds. Here we go, right? This is what you came for, innit? This is what you came for. There you go. No, wrong game. Okay, sorry. Let's jump back. So, the Friday game. Even though we're going to start talking about the KLASSIKER, and we will get to the KLASSIKER, obviously. Anyway, this one, that goal went in after 11 minutes by Louis Openda, and I was thinking, you scored a little bit too early there. Unless you're going to come and try and get that early goal, sit back. But Leipzig are a team that haven't scored that many times on the road. I think they've scored 15. Again, I haven't got my usual stats because we're doing this as a live reaction, but I recall they had something like, maybe it's 17 goals they've scored away from home, which is not poor, but it's not great. It's probably just slightly below average. Wolfsburg are a side that were coming into this game after 3 losses on the spin. They were all 1-0. So the rationale was Leipzig will come, score a goal, maybe after the hour mark, sit back, defend it, and go home with the 3 points. That early goal goes in after 11 minutes. And I'm now thinking, okay, right, he scored early on. And then my phone went again, 26 minutes. Okay. Well, I was watching it. And you must find this, right? And I suppose it's a question of latency and devices and how close you are to the sun. How close you are to the source, right? Because then it impacts the ping rate and how immediate you're going to get the answers for anything. But I find when I've got an app like LiveScore or the Bundesliga app, the app will go off, bing, like 5 seconds before the goal goes in, and you're like, oh, like spoiler alert, like watching Liam and the crew on a Saturday when they do a watch along with Bayern Munich. Check out their channel, by the way, the Bayern View. Yeah, engaging content. I think it's Steve, the guy in America who supports. He's got an affinity with Newcastle in the UK, but his heart obviously is Mir San Mir. It's with Munich. Anyway, when they react to things, but they have it all over their channel. No spoilers, ban. You get banned if you come and spoil it. And it feels like the way the internet is set up in this house is I always get notifications on my phone before the goal goes in. And it's like, spoiler, come on. Anyway, so the first goal goes in at 11 minutes. Before the goal goes in live, me watching it, and I'm like, okay, that feels a bit early. And then 26 minutes, Xavi Simon scores. And I'm like, right, well, the prediction's gone out the window. And after, just before the 50th minute, or 49 minutes, it's like, ping! I see the goal, and I'm like, right, well, we look stupid now. And then Wolfsburg do what they've done, well, a few times this season. They're involved in a lot of high-scoring games. There's quite a few 3-alls, if you look back at Wolfsburg. In fact, we can do that now, can't we, together? Clubs, there we go. Clubs, Wolfsburg. Fixtures and results. All fixtures. Right, so if we go all the way back to the start of the season, match day, is that right? Match day 1, look. Where's the one that I went to? Just out of curiosity. Oh, that must be last. No, that is this season. This one, just randomly. I went to that game. Yeah, I went to the Volkswagen Arena. Possibly the most drunkest I've ever been in my entire life. Because I fell in with all these Munich fans. There's photos of that, by the way, on Instagram. Actually, it's on a different account, because I also use I Am Turkey Salad Boy. Feel free to give that a like, a follow, subscribe, by the way. I Am Turkey Salad Boy, but focusing on the German football. Anyway, I fell in with all these German fans. We did the tailgate party. I know it's big. It's big in the US, right? When you go to NFL games, which I've done as well. It's brilliant, right? You go along, you give someone €1, you put your hand in a bucket, you pull out a beer, Prost, drink it. Wow, but those wheat beers in 44 degrees heat, woof, that has an impact. But I wanted to go to this game because I wanted to see Eric Dyer, Harry Kane, Thomas Muller, and at the time, none of us knew. Well, maybe some of us did suspect this would be Thomas Muller's last season in a Bayern jersey. But at that time, I didn't know. And after all that wheat beer, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. That's a joke. I didn't know where I was. So that was a game where, actually, if you look at the scores, Bayern were 1-0 up. Wolfsburg scored twice. And I remember, I think Thomas Muller set that Serge Gnabry goal up, if I recall. Harry Kane was involved in it because it came down the Bayern left and ended up going the goal because it was right in front. I was with all the ultras there. It was a great atmosphere. Actually, one of the best German games I've ever been to. So that's a 3-2. What's the point I'm trying to make here? Right, if we come back. Why is it not letting me do that? Right. Aha, figured it out. Right. So that's this year. I want to see all of it though. Show me all the results. Oh, because I've done it wrong answer. Right, we were looking at it by club. Here we go. Wolfsburg, all fixtures. There you go. Right, so back on track, Craig. That was a 3-2. That was a 4-3. Look, Bayern being their LEVERKUSEN selves. Oh, and by the way, for the height, if I'm looking at a screen and the camera's there, and I've mentioned this on other videos, this is it a Chesterfield? It's quite a posh chair. I've got a gaming chair just behind, well, just out of shot, which needs building, but this is a priority. And I don't know what you're like with procrastinating, but, you know, I procrastinate when I'm nervous. And again, because this is a new format, and I suppose I was relatively nervous, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, I wasn't sure how you lot were going to react, and which is another good point, actually. It'd be great, if not now, live, if there actually is anyone in the chat. Don't be shy, everyone's welcome. No religion, no politics, everything else is pretty much like, it's free and easy night. In the VOD though, it'd be good if you could let me know your feedback, because it might be, Craig, that was a bit, yeah, that was meh. Stick to scripting it, because you're better that way. Your delivery's better. Or if you like this free and easy, again, it feels like it's so free and easy. It's loose. You know, it's like an elasticated waistband. This where usually it's more prim proper braces. You know, sharp tailored fit. This is loungewear. Okay. Elasticated loungewear. That's what this is. This is the elasticated loungewear reaction to the Bundesliga. It ain't no sharp, tweed suit. Right, so here's the game. Look, look at the scores. Look, they were 1-0. Oh, look, that's Mukiele. That's fascinating. I was convinced that Mukiele was playing elsewhere. Oh, he is. Is that why I can't click on it? Oh, I can click on it there, look. That's interesting. I noticed that there's no back button. Okay. That's a bit frustrating. I'll need to look at that on OBS to figure out how you can get back. Yeah. Things you learn, right, as you go along. Anyway, what are we doing? We're talking about Wolfsburg, weren't we? Wolfsburg, all results. So we've had a 2-3, a 3-4, a 4-2. Werder Bremen, by the way, and we'll get onto that later in this stream. They won away at Stuttgart. I mean, the red card was pivotal for Nick Voldemort, or Voldemort as we call him. That was pivotal in that game. But Werder won, and Werder have got I think it's the third best away record. Maybe it's the second best away record now in the Bundesliga, behind Bayern Munich. That's not bad for a team that were on, they'd lost 3 in a row back in February. They were in a right mess, Werder. They've turned it around now. Ollie Burke, what a renaissance story that is for a guy that was out in the cold, farmed out to Birmingham in the UK in the Championship. Oh, as a jet goes overhead. I booked that, by the way, just to celebrate this stream. No, I didn't. Of course, I didn't. Yeah, what a renaissance man and a redemption arc of a player. Yeah, so farmed out to Birmingham, didn't do particularly well, recalled. This is the same Bremen team, by the way, that have loaned in Andre Silva. Yeah, they've loaned in Andre Silva from Leipzig. Weirdly, another man that seems to be out in the cold, right? He went on loan somewhere else. Then he was at Leipzig. Back at Leipzig, they didn't want him. He's come into Werder Bremen. They don't seem to use him. In fact, Bittencourt, I know he's more midfielder. But there's another guy. Oh, actually, I should know all this. And if I was scripting it, I would do, which we need to fix. But this is our debut stream under the German football spotlight. The spotlight seems pretty dim at the minute, if I'm honest. It will get brighter. Give me a chance. There's another 4-3. Look, that was a home win against Mainz. That was cracking. So, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that internet speeds, latency, having apps open while you're watching football on a stream, legitimate stream, by the way, on Sky, because Sky in the UK broadcast all the Bundesliga games. Or even if you're watching it on DFB Player, right, which you can, they stream those games. I find that, phone notifications on apps, spoiler, and I know you can turn it off, but I always forget because you get caught up in it, right? You get caught up in the excitement of thinking, right, it's Bundesliga time. Grab your drinks, grab your snacks, ping. Right, you just get immersed in it. Then you go down the rabbit hole of, I'll just have a look how other people are finding this game. You look on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it in the modern day. you might put on some on stream. If it's Bremen, you might go and watch Real Nico. You might go and check in with Verder Mike and the New York City crew and see what their reaction is. And then before you know it, you've completely forgot that you got a notification on your phone that pings and spoils the legitimate fan reaction. And then people like Liam and I think it's Steve get cross, right? Because it's like, no spoilers. You get banned. Anyway, so I probably need to fix that. Right. So, anyway, the KLASSIKER. Okay, I told you we'd get there in the end. Yeah, okay. So this was billed. This was billed as a grudge match, a rivalry, one where form of both teams goes out the window because again it's played out in that very unique atmosphere, and there was a legitimate, legitimate belief that there'd be goals in this game because Munich at the minute with their defence of Dyer and Kim, well, and the way that Big Brain Vincent Kompany likes to set that team up as a 2-4-4 when he's going forward, it's very vulnerable to just any attack, as Inter proved, when they came to the Allianz the other day. So Munich are great going forward, but they can't keep clean sheets. And Dortmund are in a bit of a mess. They've conceded, 53 goals this season? Maybe 55 now. So, yeah, two teams that are very inconsistent, that can't keep clean sheets. But again, with that atmosphere around the game, it's gung-ho, it's cavalier, it's almost like a basketball game. And it didn't really play out that way in the first half. The first half, it felt like, well, we can look at the stats, look, right? There we go. Check out the stats. So unfortunately, you can't see it by half, can you? There's probably and do you know what? I've not come across that yet. So if anyone is in the chat or anyone watching this VOD in the future has got a recommendation to somewhere where we can go and look at, check out stats post-match by different halves, that would be fascinating to see, because I've not found that. But yeah, so looking at this is pointless. So we'll come back to there's the score anyway. Look, see. So the first half seemed cagey. Let's have a look at the lineups. There you go. Right. So there's the lineups of the two teams. Erby gets another chance. That was his 5th consecutive game. So he's played in the Champions League. He's played 4 Bundesliga games now. That back line, like I say, of Kim and Dyer, pretty unconvincing. But to be fair to Vincent Kompany, it's a patched up team, right? It's a makeshift team because he's struggling with a lot of injuries across all positions, within his system that he likes to play, which is that 4-2-3-1 classic Football Manager, double pivot, Gretzky, Kimmich. Interesting that Gretzky played because I thought he might have been saved for the Inter game, which is coming up this week on, I forgot what Wednesday is now. What's Wednesday in German? I forgot what it is now. Anyway, I thought he might have gone with Polinia and Kimmich. I mean, Kimmich is captain, fantastic, so he was always going to play. And then Muller comes in as the number 10, which was we felt like that was a smart move. Vincent Kompany experimented by putting Guerrero in the number 10 against Inter. Didn't really work. Again, I think he had 37 touches in that game. No through balls, no key passes. He did have a couple of shots. There was one that went over the crossbar, but we're going down the rabbit hole now. We were talking about a previous game and we should be focusing on the KLASSIKER. Anyway, so it was like there was a cry from all the Bayern fans, 400,000 members, the biggest supported club in the entire world. Please try Muller at number 10. And that's what he did, right? Stanley on the left, Elise on the right, Harry Kane up front. And again, interesting post-match, there seems to be a lot of people being upset because they paid a lot of money for him. They paid, 100 million-ish euro, and he hasn't scored now in 3 games? Or maybe it's 2. Did score against St. Pauli. Actually, he did score against Augsburg, yeah. Scored against St. Pauli, scored against Augsburg in the Bavarian derby when they came from behind to win 3-1. Didn't score in the Champions League, I recall. And then didn't score in this one because it was Guerrero and Gnabry. Yeah, so there's some question, but it's Harry Kane, right? Come on, like people have off games, but I suppose it's interesting that he was potentially marked out of that game by a back three of Dortmund, which again has been inconsistent. And it's funny there was a back three. It's funny that Kovac went with a back three in this game in the KLASSIKER, whereas in Barcelona he didn't. He went with a 4-2-3-1 against Barcelona, and they were caught with their pants down and lost 4-0. This game he switched to a back three. He's brought in Niklas Süle. Again, that's somebody that we felt should have played against Barcelona because he's 6'4" and 5 foot wide. And it worked. It kept Bayern Munich at bay in the first half of the KLASSIKER when it was 0-0. This is all over the shop, isn't it? Sorry. There's the lineups anyway. First half, KG. I recall Lisa had some interesting shots. Kane was involved in the action too. Second half, Maxi Bayer scores that goal. Wow. Almost like Bayern Munich caught out. They're still trying to warm themselves up. They're still trying to run off the beer and the sausage at half time, and they're caught, and it's 1-0. And then after the hour mark, there's some inspired substitution from Vincent Kompany, which is he brings on Serge Gnabry and Guerrero to his credit. But the Gnabry substitution, that seemed to change the dynamic of the game, right? So Guerrero scores, and it's a lovely move. It must have been Sané cutting in on the left. Unless, no, he'd already gone off for somebody. Or maybe it was Gnabry. Maybe he did it himself. But Muller was involved anyway. Muller was involved in that in the build up to that goal. Lays the ball off, and Guerrero strokes it in for 1-1. And then Gnabry's goal was gorgeous, right? It was a solo slalom and effort, cutting in past the back three that looked just very confused. And then the ball ends up in the bottom corner for 2-1, and the momentum swings like it does in football. Someone gets the goal, your tails get up, there's energy. People start to find more space. The passing's more fluid. It's crisper. The progressive carries from people like Kimmich and Elise are happening more frequently. And then bang, the 2-1 in front. And then again at that point, our prediction was that Munich would win it 2-1. So we're sat there thinking, great, smug face. We know what we're talking about here, right? We never said it. We never go as far as predicting whether a team's going to score first and what the result's going to be, because this isn't a spread betting channel or a betting in running or a live betting channel. This is one real person, two real people that care about the Bundesliga enough, and then we make predictions about how the games are going to go. Sometimes we might throw it out there and say Johnny Burkhardt will score for Mainz, or Tim Kleindienst will get a goal because he's already scored 15 this season. We'll do that. But in this game, we just felt it was going to be a 2-1 Munich win. It was going to be a game where they were caught up in the moment. Thomas Muller in his last ever KLASSIKER would be pivotal, as he was in that equalising goal, and they would win it 2-1. And I felt great. We know what we're talking about. And then out of nowhere, and it was Jurassi, wasn't it, in the build-up? Which again, it was a guy that just went missing against Barcelona. He looked isolated in that game. I think I made a joke on the review video that there was a lot of distance between the Dortmund 5, and that produced this whole throwaway comment of, it sounds like a prison drama, right? The Dortmund 5 trying to escape from Barcelona, a bit like, escape from LA featuring Kurt Russell. Well, escape from Barcelona with Julian Brandt looking lost. But there was a lot of distance between that midfield and Jurassi up front. And he missed a few chances. But, that happens, right, in professional sport. Whether it was the occasion, whether it was just the fact that Barcelona knew how to react to him, or whether he just got some nerves. It doesn't matter. He's human, right? Anyway, this game, it was ball juggling. It's ball juggling in the 6-yard box, right? He manages to flick the ball up twice, get a shot in on the volley. So it's a fantastic reaction save from Erbig, and then Anton follows it up, right? Because because there's no defenders. How Kim and Dyer are looking in opposite directions, and the ball ends up at 2-2, and with 15 minutes to play, I think that's the point where, again, the momentum shifted. You started to think, actually, Dortmund could win this. They could win this 3-2. Forget the prediction. Again, forget the form of the two teams coming to this game. This was a KLASSIKER. It was, yeah. Despite the fact that everyone thought, Dortmund are not the team that they were under someone like Klopp when the KLASSIKER really meant something. Dortmund have fallen off. They're in 8th so far in the Bundesliga this season. They've scored 43 goals, 44 goals, conceded 53. They're in 8th position. What sort of a threat could they possibly pose Munich? They might nick a goal because that Munich backline is fragile, because it's makeshift, because of injuries. But somehow, they managed to score 2 goals and sit tight and hold on at the end despite some late pressure from Munich, which you would expect. Home team, 75,000 fans, riled them on. They've just conceded a goal. They're trying to get a winner because they're under pressure. And that's the other variable, right? Which is something we'll come on to next, which is the impact that Dortmund could have had on Munich, not just in the title race for the Bundesliga, but for the rest of the season, which is how we build it in our preview show. If you find that on YouTube, look at German Football Spotlight, which is the name of the channel. Find the preview video for match day 29, which was all built around the idea of the KLASSIKER being the focal point, which it should have been. But you'll see that we were trying to come up with a narrative that there's an impact. Dortmund can have an impact on the rest of Munich's season, both in the Bundesliga in the title running and the Champions League. Because if they'd lost this game, all of a sudden they've lost 2 in a row. The form's gone. They're feeling sorry for themselves. They've got to pick themselves up. They've got to go to the San Siro, the Giovanni Meazza Stadium, where they're 2-1 down, where someone like Muller's fighting for his life because this could be the last time it could be his last ever Champions League game coming up this week. So if they'd have lost this, the morale would have been completely sucked out of him. And that, arguably, there's still a big mental test on Vincent Kompany's capacity as a manager. How's he going to rile his troops? Thankfully, they didn't lose. The game ended 2-2, right? So in isolation, okay. But earlier in the day, because this was a top-spiel game on the Samstag, Leverkusen, as we'll find out, right? No spoilers, but you should already know it, right? Because, you come here for a reaction, but it's interesting that this ended up 2-2. Leverkusen dropped points, and we can analyse that game thoroughly soon. So what could have been a potentially 3-point gap has ended up being 4 points because of that late Dortmund goal, and it's impacted how maybe not that much of an impact, but Munich have got to go away to Inter and get a result to stay in that tie and progress in the Champions League. But at least they're not doing it having come off the back of a loss and feeling sorry for themselves. So if we do a quick review of the stats, which is fascinating. Look at that, see? So Dortmund scored 2, having 3 shots on target. Again, credit to Jurassic for almost producing that magic on his own. With that, he's played a bit of futsal. Puts his own shot on goal. Munich had 10 shots on target, but only scored twice. The substitution, like we say, was pivotal, bringing on Gnabry when they did, because he's had a lot of critics this season. Again, if we were scripting this, I would serve up all sorts of data about his performance this season. I'll probably do that in the VOD. But they scored twice from 10 shots on target. Look at the possession. Munich so far this season have been ranking in the 60 to 65% possession at home, so they're dominating teams. It was always going to be the way, right? Although that's interesting, they were outrun by Dortmund, who covered more ground, made more sprints. I assume a lot of that was to catch up with Michael Olise. and positionally try and get ahead of people like Elise. Dortmund tackled hard, look, so I assume that was the likes of Kimmich and Gretzky. And Gretzky, an interesting choice because it felt like he was going to be rested. They played Paulinho. Gretzky would have been match fit and, motivated for this game against Inter in the week. Pass efficiency, that's interesting. Well, again, Kimmich's always comes out with the most touches per game because all the ball goes through him, right? He is the main ball carrier from the keeper out of defence, looking wide to try and find a pass, or I assume he was linking up more with Thomas Muller. Interesting that Daniel Svensson at the back covered a lot of K's. Yeah. Actually, when it came to man of the match voting at the end, there was a choice. Muller, Elise, Kerbal in goal. I mean, Kerbal had a fantastic game. I thought Gregory Korbel played well against Barca, even though he let 4 in. That Barca could have been 3-0 up after 7 minutes if it wasn't for him pulling off some smart saves. Well, I suppose he saved 2 of them. The other one was that audacious solo effort by Lamine Yamal. He tried to bend it in from an oblique angle, but Korbel kept them. He did his best to keep the scoreline down because it could have been more than 4-0 against Barcelona. And he pulled off some really sharp saves in this game, as did Erbeck, to be fair. The young lad's learning, debutising for Manuel Neuer. That midfield, if you come back up to look at the lineups, yeah. So again, Dortmund came with a back 3, which felt like a smart move. 5 in midfield, well, the 2 wing backs, so the 3 in midfield. Pascal Gross played, so it's not a surprise that they had a bit more steel. He was suspended for the Barcelona game. Ozcan, interesting choice again. He's had his critics this season. Julian Brandt, I know there's a few people that are frustrated that he's playing as frequently as what he is, because he's a bit like, well, you can't see it on camera, can you? But he's a little bit like this guy. He's a bit like Mesut Ozil, right? He blows hot and cold. Yeah, I was impressed. I was impressed with Dortmund. Jurassi had a much better game than he did against Barcelona. Maxi Bai was electric. He got his goal, the go-ahead goal to kick off all the action in that second half. And Chan, the captain, because he's the special one, according to Niko Kovac. He's come in. Interesting that his brother's his assistant manager. I found that out quite recently. Anton had a respectable game, scored his goal as well. And Nicolas Soule, he came in and propped up that back 3. So yeah, it was a resolute performance. You could argue, well, they conceded 2 goals. Yeah, but they were going to. Munich's always going to hurt you when they go forward because they've got electric talent. They've got Elise, they've got Sane, Gnabry came on, Muller was at 10. He's a mischievous, wily character. He knows how to wind people up. He's very committed. He's highly intelligent. He's got an IQ off the charts. He's got all that experience because he's a one club man that's played professional football for 25 years. He got Harry Kane up front, who on any other day, you put a ball into him, he'll find the space, and he'll put a shot off and he'll score. So the fact that Dortmund only conceded 2 and managed to fight their way back into the game and score 2, yeah, all credit to them. What's that done for their push for Europe? Well, we can check that by looking at the table. So again, spoiler, you can see the gap with Leverkusen, 42, right? So they're on 42 points. So as we know, top 6 places in the Bundesliga going to Europe. 6th place is Freiburg currently. That's the Conference League. Mainz in 5th. That's the Europa League, and the top 4 is Champions League, which is what Dortmund need to do because they're already out of the cup. I mean, the DFB Pokal final is the 24th of May between. Well, it's a fairy tale story, isn't it? Between Arminia Bielefeld from Liga 3 and Stuttgart. So it'll be a classic, that one, the final. So Dortmund's only chance of... Well, that's not true, is it? Because they are still... Technically, they're still in the Champions League, although staring down the barrel of a gun, being 4-0 down. At least they're at home. this week. In fact, it's tomorrow, right? It's Tuesday. So, you know, they're at home at the Westfalenstadion in front of the yellow wall. They've pulled deficits back, although not as big, right? Didn't they play, was it Malaga? I believe. They've played Malaga and turned a deficit round, and last season against Atletico in that high-scoring second leg of the semi-final. But it wasn't a 4-0 deficit, was it? Right. So that's going to be. They're going to look for the yellow wall to be the 12th man. Yeah, we should have a bell, shouldn't we, for cliches? Ding. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, 42. So they are 3 points behind Freiburg. There's 5 games to go. The season, I believe, the last day is May 17th. Next set of games. Well, it's Easter, isn't it? Easter's coming up this weekend. Well, I know people have different faiths around the world, different religions, but, you know, Easter's taking place. So no game on Friday because it's Good Friday. So the next bunch of games are Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, and we can see here, can't we? We can have a look at who they're playing next. So Dortmund's next game, they were home to Gladbach, which, again, you know, Gladbach are in 7th, and they're also pushing for Champions League, right? So as we saw by looking at the table again, Gladbach above them by 2 points, and they're 4 points off Leipzig. So it feels now, even though the draw against Munich is highly commendable, you know, we've got to clap that one in for that performance, especially after coming out of a game where you've been smashed 4-0 away from home. Morale's going to have been suffered. So we've got to give credit to Niko Kovac for picking his team up, for setting them up in the right way with a back three, you know, being resilient, holding in there in that first half, nicking that goal with Maxi Bayer. Okay, then they go 2-1 down. Then they come back into it, and they manage to draw the game 2-2. That's a pretty good turnaround, right? That's a pretty good 4 or 5 days worth of football for Dortmund. Although, again, with 5 games to go, they need to win every single game and be reliant on other people dropping points. So the next game, as we would say about a relegation battle, is a sextunkter, right? It's a 6-pointer, effectively, but at the top half of the table, because Gladbach is a threat. They're a threat for Dortmund getting into the Champions League. And actually, if we look at all their fixtures, it'd be funny if they had to play Freiburg, wouldn't it? Who they got to come? Hoffenheim, who were down in 15th. Wolfsburg, who were completely out of form, have now lost 4 in a row. Leverkusen, wow, I mean, come on, right? Dortmund could completely. Well, actually, the title race could be over by that game. But imagine if this was the 22-23 season all over again. You know, Jude Bellingham's last game at Dortmund. You know, there were 2 minutes and a kick away from being champions before Mainz scored that last-minute goal, and Munich won their game. You know, we could see a repeat of that. So Dortmund could have an impact on this title race, whilst also secure their Champions League spot. But they've got to win every single game. They've got to beat Gladbach, Hoffenheim, Wolfsburg, Leverkusen, Holstein Kiel, who potentially could be already down by that point. So that they might feel the kids, as they say, you know, give the youth some chance. So yeah, a lot of pressure on Dortmund. They've got to find wins and are dependent upon other results. And I think we'll take a break there because analytically we've done all we can to cover that without providing some actual key data points. But the key data point is it was Bayern 2, Dortmund 2, and it was a pretty impressive performance. It was rear guard. They were resilient. They stayed in the game. For Munich, well, we saw the difference in the table. We'll have a look at it again. Because of Leverkusen fluffing their lines and drawing, then that gap is as it was, right? Still 6 points. We'll take a pause. We'll come back soon. Go and get yourself a drink. Have a break, have a comfort break, and we'll be right back with some more Bundesliga Matchday 29 review action. Okay, and we're back. Right. So we've covered the KLASSIKER. That was 2-2. Again, lots of goals, high drama. Our prediction, where we were out by a goal, well technically a result, because we did have Munich down as coming up chumps with a 2-1 win. Didn't finish that way, but again, credit to Dortmund for fighting their way back into the game. Now let's have a look. Let's have a look at Leverkusen. Right. Let's have a look and see how they got on. So, yeah, that game was 0-0, which, yeah, interesting. I mean, we know that Union Berlin are street fighters. They were coming into that on the back of a 4-game unbeaten streak, 2 wins in a row. Both games, interesting that they came from a goal down. They came from a goal down against Frankfurt to win 2-1. They came from a goal down against Freiburg to win 2-1. Hollerbach had scored 2-2, I recall. However, this is Leverkusen, right? Who've only lost 2 games at home all season. They were Leverkusen because they managed to win 1-0 away at Heidenheim in the previous game on match day 28. So we had this down as being a 3-1 home win. And I'm pretty sure that most of you would have assumed when you match the 2 teams up, and again, here's the lineups, right? If you have a look at the lineups. Yeah, that is working, right. I'm not saying it's day and night, but arguably there's more quality in that Leverkusen team. Interesting that both have gone with 3 at the back. You know, Xabi Alonso would usually go with that, right? He'd either go 4-3-3, or he'd put Schick up front on his own, or he'd do a 4-2-3-1. You know, classic football manager, which is what Vincent Kompany does for Bayern Munich. 2 different managers, 2 different philosophies. Obviously, worked for last season because Leverkusen won the Bundesliga. Yeah, Xhaka is the linchpin in midfield. Frimpong out on the right, one of the fastest players in the Bundesliga. Grimaldo on the left. You know, 2 very effective wing backs. Palacios, well, we've called him out as a one to watch in previous shows. Alex Garcia, the Spaniard, again, you know, this a few weeks ago against Bochum, he was coming up with a couple of assists. Nathan Teller, ex-Burnley striker, that's interesting, right? Which, you know, previously had a relationship with Vincent Kompany, so that's fascinating. So 2 up front for a change. So even that, right? 2 up front. It feels like 2 up front with the quality in that team, the ability to, well, and they're obviously missing Florian Wirtz. I mean, that screams out straight away, right? Any team would miss Florian Wirtz, by the way. But someone with that playmaking ability, the ability to find a... Just 1 second. The ability to find a... It's live, right? What do you expect? You know, it'll be all right in the night, they say. That just proves that, you know... Well, that might have been his agent ringing me to say, just call out Florian Wirtz. He's not going to Munich, or is he? We don't know, do we? We don't know. Any team would miss that level of playmaking ability. But you've got options in midfield, right? You've got Palacios and you've got Garcia, 2 guys that can sort of, you know, do their best to compensate, and against a team who's been set up in a way by Stefan Baumgart. You know, they're away from home against a tough opposition. 1 guy up front, 3 at the back. We'll pack out the midfield. We'll try and do what we can to put a stranglehold on people like Garcia and Palacios. You know, maybe they've put someone, maybe Rani Khedira, younger brother of ex-Galactico Sami Khedira, you know, maybe get him to tight mark and wind up Granit Xhaka, because as we know from his time, Gonzo's telling me from his time at Arsenal, he used to get wound up pretty easy. You know, he used to pick up a yellow card, like most people do, you know, picking up cards on a milestone. Well, he used to pick up a lot of cards, right? He used to get wound up. So maybe that was the tactic, you know. 3 at the back, fill out the midfield, key mark came out the attacking threat from Leverkusen. Obviously, you have the likes of Querfeld and Leitao man marking Schick and Tello and see what happens. And it looks for the world that credit to Stefan Baumgart, and that's what happened, right? Because there's the tell, right? Excuse me. The telltale sign is the 0-0. And if we look at the stats, it doesn't matter about the XG. Well, it does, but we're not going to go down that, get stuck in those weeds. But Leverkusen had 13 shots, only 4 on target. Yes, look at that, 68% of the possession. So, as you would expect, a bit like Munich at home, they're one of the highest. I think it's Munich, Leverkusen, Dortmund, 3 teams that really score highly in the percentile in terms of having 60 plus possession at home. Leverkusen have done that. Look at that pass accuracy. We've got 704 passes versus 240, and I bet if I was to look at another website, it would give me an indication of an average, maybe a 6 or 7 pass streak for Leverkusen. So it looks like they were doing everything they could. Similar to Dortmund outrunning Munich, well, the same things happened here, and it's not a surprise again, because I imagine that midfield 3 here, well, Herrera, Khedira, that rhymes, doesn't it? They got 2 sort of attacking-ish type players that are doing a lot of the ground further up the pitch. But yeah, I imagine that quartet 4 there, Schaefer, Skarke, Khedira and Herrera, they're probably doing a lot of running to try and keep up with all the passing moves that Leverkusen were bringing to the party. Who do they bring on as a sub? Oh, it's interesting that he keeps bringing Holler back off the bench. He doesn't start him, treating him very much like an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, right? Like a super sub. So yeah, and actually that's another clean sheet for Renault. So what's that now? That must be. Let's have a. Yeah, we can. Let me check that one out. Here. So that's 8 clean sheets for Frederic Renault. Interesting that 4 of those have come on the road. That's fascinating. Yeah. Good work. Good work, Rees. Oh, I thought it was Frederic. I was calling Frederic. No. Good work there. Yeah, good work, Stefan Baumgart. Managing to lock Leverkusen up into a 0-0. Some of the distances, like we say, that's 2 of the 4 that were in the midfield. Yeah, fascinating. All right, Hincapié won most of his duels, but I'm not surprised, right? Because that's a case of, again, if I could see a full stat breakdown, there'd be a lot of long balls over the top, aiming for the likes of Andras Ilic, and then Hollerbach who's come on for him. So Hincapié, Jonathan Tah and Tapsoka, they're going to have to do what they can to clear up the danger, and it looks like they did that. But they couldn't find a way past that very compact Union Berlin defence. Well done. Disappointing because, again, our prediction was that Bayern were going to win it 3-1, which would put a flag in the ground. It would send a message out to Munich, which is, hey, we're keeping up with you toe-to-toe, because that would have reduced the gap down to 3 points. As it was, they don't win. It's a stalemate. And then in that later game, if you look at, again, where's it gone? Here, look. 70 minutes, 2-1 Munich. I'm sure that Xabi and his players are thinking, we've messed up here. And it happened a few weeks ago, if you remember, on the same weekend where Munich was celebrating their 125th anniversary, that big party at the Allianz. Bochum turned up and thought, what's all this about, a party? We're not just going to have a party bag and some cake, we're going to take 3 points back with us, right? So Bochum turned up, crashed that party, won the game 3-2, so Munich dropped points. But on the same day, Werder Bremen turned up at the Bayer Arena and won 2-0. You know, Romano Schmidt. Was it Ollie Bate with the goal, I believe? Or maybe it was Jan Stark. I could probably check. Anyway, the point is, it just seems to be fate now that on the same day Munich drop points, Leverkusen do the same. Are we going to get a repeat of the 22-23 season? You know, that went all the way down, literally, not just to the last game and the last day, but for pretty much the last kick of the ball. Is it going to be the same this season? Well, arguably it can't go to the last game, can it? Because if it's... Or could it? I suppose it could, right? If it's still a 3-point gap on the last day of the season, Munich draw or drop points and Leverkusen win, then they could pinch it right at the death. That's football, right? But as it is, you know, the football gods, the higher spirits, the higher power, fate, he's making it an interesting run-in with 5 games to go. And again, we'll take another look at the table, but you know the situation. Yeah, as it stands right now, before the Easter games, it's a 6-point gap. Leverkusen will look at that as points dropped in a game where they should have won at home. We'll take another break. We'll come back. We'll look at the remaining games from match day 29. Go and get yourself another drink, or just have a walk around, or go and teach yourself German. I'll be the same for now. Yeah, we can check that one out here. So that is now, that's 8 clean sheets for Frederick Ranau. Interesting that 4 of those have come on the road. That's fascinating. Yeah, good work. Good work, Rees. Oh, I thought it was Frederick. I was calling Frederick. No. Good work there. Yeah, good work, Stefan Baumgart. Managing to lock Leverkusen up into a 0-0. Some of the distances, like we say, that's 2 of the 4 that were in the midfield. Yeah, fascinating. All right, Hincapi won most of his duels, but I'm not surprised, right? Because that's a case of, I mean, again, if I could see a full stat breakdown, there'd be a lot of long balls over the top, you know, aiming for the likes of Andras Ilic and then Hollerbach, who's come on for him. So Hincapi, Jonathan Tah and Tapsoka, you know, they're going to have to do what they can to clear up the danger, and it looks like they did that. But they couldn't find a way past that very compact Union Berlin defence. Well done. Disappointing because, again, our prediction was that Bayern were going to win it 3-1, which would put a flag in the ground. It would send a message out to Munich, which is, hey, we're keeping up with you toe-to-toe, you know, because that would have reduced the gap down to 3 points. As it was, they don't win. It's a stalemate. And then in that later game, you know, if you look at, again, where's it gone? Here, look. 70 minutes, 2-1 Munich. I'm sure that Xabi and his players are thinking, oh, we've messed up here, you know. And it happened a few weeks ago, if you remember, on the same weekend where Munich was celebrating their 125th anniversary, that big party at the Allianz. Bochum turned up and thought, yeah, what's all this about, a party? We're not just going to have a party bag and some cake, we're going to take 3 points back with us, right? So Bochum turned up, crashed that party, won the game 3-2, you know, so Munich dropped points. But on the same day, Werder Bremen turned up at the Bayer Arena and won 2-0. You know, Romano Schmidt. Was it Ollie Bate with the goal, I believe? Or maybe it was Jan Stark. I could probably check. Anyway, the point is, it just seems to be fate now that on the same day Munich dropped points, Leverkusen do the same. Are we going to get a repeat of the 22-23 season? You know, that went all the way down, literally, not just to the last game and the last day, but for the last, pretty much the last kick of the ball. Is it going to be the same this season? Well, arguably, it can't go to the last game, can it? Because if it's... Or could it? I suppose it could, right? If it's still a 3-point gap on the last day of the season, Munich draw or drop points and Leverkusen win, then they could pinch it right at the death. That's football, right? But as it is, you know, the football gods, the higher spirits, the higher power, fate, is making it an interesting run-in with 5 games to go. And again, we'll take another look at the table, but you know the situation. Yeah, as it stands right now, before the Easter games, it's a 6-point gap. Leverkusen will look at that as points dropped in a game where they should have won at home. We'll take another break. We'll come back. We'll look at the remaining games from match day 29. Go and get yourself another drink, or just have a walk around, or go and teach yourself German. I'll be the same for now. Yeah, we can check that one out here. So that is now game, because Munich at the minute with their defence of Dyer and Kim, well, and the way that Big Brain Vincent Company likes to set that team up as a 2-4. We can... Yeah, good work. Back 3, you know, being resilient, holding in there in that first half, nicking that goal with Maxi Bayer. Okay, then they go 2-1 down. Then they come back into it, and they manage to draw the game 2-2. That's a pretty good turnaround, right? That's a pretty good 4 or 5 days worth of football for Dortmund. Although, again, with 5 games to go, they need to win every single game and be reliant on other people dropping points. So the next game, as we would say about a relegation battle, is a sect puncter, right? It's a 6-pointer, effectively, but at the top half of the table, because Gladbach is a threat. They're a threat for Dortmund getting into the Champions League. And actually, if we look at all their fixtures, it'd be funny if they had to play Freiburg, wouldn't it? Who they got to come? Hoffenheim, who were down in 15th. Wolfsburg, who were completely out of form, have now lost 4 in a row. Leverkusen, wow, I mean, come on, like, Dortmund could completely, well, actually the title race could be over by that game, but imagine if this was the 22-23 season all over again. You know, Jude Bellingham's last game at Dortmund, you know, there were 2 minutes and a kick away from being champions before Mainz scored that last-minute goal and Munich won their game. You know, we could see a repeat of that. So Dortmund could have an impact on this title race whilst also secure their Champions League spot. But they've got to win every single game. They've got to beat Gladbach, Hoffenheim, Wolfsburg, Leverkusen, Holstein Kiel, who potentially could be already down by that point. So that they might field the kids, as they say, you know, give the youth some chance. So yeah, a lot of pressure on Dortmund. They've got to find wins and are dependent upon other results. And I think we'll take a break there because analytically we've done all we can to cover that without providing some actual key data points. But the key data point is it was Bayern 2, Dortmund 2, and it was a pretty impressive performance. It was rearguard. They were resilient. They stayed in the game. For Munich, well, we saw the difference in the table. We'll have a look at it again. because of Leverkusen fluffing their lines and drawing, then that gap is as it was, right? Still 6 points. We'll take a pause. We'll come back soon. Go and get yourself a drink. Have a break. Have a comfort break. And we'll be right back with some more Bundesliga Matchday 29 review action. Right, welcome back. Let's take a look at Hoffenheim, who were playing at home against Mainz. Let's take a look at that one. So, this game completely threw us out. Our prediction was that Mainz would turn up and win this one. Did we say? I'm sure we said 3-1. Yeah. Our prediction is that Mainz would turn up and win 3-1. And that's because there were three. Yeah, they hadn't won in 3. So the last few games go into this one. Mainz had drawn 2-2. Lost 3-1, and their last game they'd drawn 1-1 with Holstein Kiel. Another game where we predicted that Mainz were going to wipe the floor with Kiel and win 4-0, and they had to come from behind for a draw. And Hoffenheim, they won this run of, I think it was 35 or 36 games at home without a clean sheet. So you thought, well, the second best team away in terms of goals in the Bundesliga was Mainz, because they'd scored 27 times away from home. All right, conceded a few on the road, conceded 21, but that's probably about par. That's versus a Hoffenheim team, again, that have got a -6 goal difference at home, and again haven't kept a clean sheet since the calendar year 2023, right? So it just felt like Mainz would come in. Again, if you look at if we come back in and judge it by the table, right? So obviously this is after the Lord Mayor's show. This is live. It's after the weekend. But going into that game, Mainz were in 4th, which is the last Champions League spot up for grabs in the Bundesliga. 4 teams obviously go through. The winner, 2nd place, 3rd, 4th. Forget the top 2, right? This is real. With 5 games to go for a team like Mainz and for Leipzig and Frankfurt and possibly Freiburg, this is a race now to finish 3rd. And going into this weekend of Matchday 29, you know, it were 2 teams, Frankfurt and Mainz, who've been slugging it out for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row as to who was going to finish 3rd, who was going to finish 4th. It's just a bit of a shock. Yeah, honestly, like a real shock that, you know, for a team that haven't kept a clean sheet at home, haven't scored that many times, scored with Andre Kramaric, right? After 4 minutes. Let's have a look at the lineup, just so we can see. So what was fascinating is that Captain Johnny Bergkamp didn't start up front. In fact, he wasn't even on the bench. Look, Johnny Bergkamp was absent in this one. Nelson Viper, again, good football manager pick up there. If you can sign him for a respectable amount early on, he'll bag you goals as he grows, as he develops. So they turn up with a 3 at the back, which they have done in many games this season. Anthony Cassie, the Frenchman, on one side, Moani on the other. Hard-working, I want to watch was Kaisho Sano, you know, alongside Lee. and then Paul Nebel, kind of playing behind Nelson Viper, right? So they've come away from home 3 at the back. I guess it's very traditional as a formation in Germany, people playing 3 at the back. Hoffenheim, well, they're at home, they've done the same thing. Tabakovic up front rather than Gift Orban, who was previously one of our ones to watch, but as you can see, he was on the bench, actually didn't even come on as sub. And it's our one to watch for Hoffenheim was Bazuman Toure, or Baz Toure, the Ivorian 19-year-old attacking midfielder, playing on the right. And yeah, he came up with the assist. In fact, Toure provided both assists for that brace from Kramaric. Just fascinating. Is that a red card then to Paul Nebel at the end? Wow. Okay. Naughty boy. There you go. There's the stats for the game. I mean, 1 shot on target. I mean, yeah, that's a Mainz team that was sorely missing their bagsman. Is he 15 goals up to this point in the season? Let me just double check that, because I'm pretty sure he has. Yeah, 15 goals, 2 assists up to this point. Not in the team. Scored 27 times away from home. And they were missing the main guy, right? And that was telling, because they only managed to put in 1 shot on target in a whole of 95 minutes. That Paul Nebel red card is, the game's already finished by that point, right? In fact, you could argue the game was already over at half time. Yeah, interesting, that one. And then Hoffenheim break their streak. Yeah, they can finally get their monkey off the back. They can now say, right, from this point onwards, we start again. We try and keep a clean sheet for next week. Let's just double check that. See what the incident was. Oh, it was a second yellow card, right? So he's either been mouthing off, or maybe he's left a bit on somebody. Look at that, Bazuman Toure, fastest man in the game, 35.28 kilometers per hour. Wow. There you go. Kaisho Sano is our one to watch in the middle, handling the pressure, 10 times under pressure, rose to the occasion, but sadly couldn't help his team find their way back into the game, and they lose 2-0. We have a look at the impact on the table. So Mainz, as it is, dropped down from 4th into 5th. They're still in the European spot, which is Europa League. That's Thursday night football. The premium end of the Thursday night football, Conference League, Europa League. As for Hoffenheim, well, they remain in 14th. Oh, of course, because St. Pauli, we'll cover St. Pauli next, because that's interesting. Yeah. So Hoffenheim remain in 14th on 30 points. Arguably safe for another season, because it really seems like, it seems like even St. Pauli might be breathing a little bit easier after a win in match day 29, but there you go. Hoffenheim in 14th. There's a gap of 4 points to them and Union Berlin in 13th. At the top of the table, Mainz, look at that, see 46 points, which is only 2 off Leipzig, again with 5 games to go. If Leipzig drop points and Mainz keep on winning, and let's just have a look to see what their fixtures are like. Right, so we can have a look and we can see, look, Mainz fixtures for the rest of the season. Next weekend they play Wolfsburg. They are a team that's now lost 4 on the spin and conceded 6 goals in those 4 games. Then they've got to go away to Munich. They've got to play Frankfurt. So that's tasty, right? So take out Munich. They've got to play... Wow. So Mainz have got to play the top 2 sides. A side that's in 3rd and one side that's scrapping for their lives at the bottom of the table, and Wolfsburg, right? So that's an interesting 5 set of games to go, which could make or break Mainz's run. Don't forget, this is a Mainz team that stayed up because they scored a last-minute goal last season, right? And Bo Henriksen came in, arguably has done wonders to turn the mentality of the team around. You know, got them winning, got them believing, got them scoring. Second highest scores away from home in the Bundesliga. Yeah, job well done. Faltered of late, like I say. I've just got to check something that, So Mainz now, they haven't won in 5 with that loss. Yeah. So the last 5 games now, their form for Mainz is 1 win, 2 draws, 2 losses. So they haven't won in 5 games. Before that last set of 5, they'd won 4 in a row, beating Heidenheim, St. Pauli, Leipzig, Gladbach. So yeah, it's tailing off. What is that? It feels to me like that's a team that's feeling the pressure of being that high up in the table. Again, it happened last year to Augsburg. Augsburg were in a similar position to Mainz and Freiburg, and they dropped off a cliff. Last season, to see the business end of the season, Augsburg lost 5 of their last 6 games. And there's a danger that a team like Mainz and Freiburg, the same pattern could happen to them. Which, again, it's all about experience, right? It's like me talking to you now and trying to do this as a live stream rather than doing it as a video which is scripted within an inch of its life. It's all new. It's all an experiment. Is it going to work? But we're going to get better over time. And, next season, they can take all that learning and think, right, okay, we're in this position before. Experience teaches us this is the game management. This is how you see a game out. This is how we go on a streak that enables us to finish higher up the table. Obviously, with a couple of extra signings and some different training patterns and patterns of playing a game under the supervision of the right manager. That's tactics, isn't it? And that's number one. That's how you set a team up for success. As it stands, though, Mainz haven't had success because they're not had a win in 5 games. As for Hoffenheim, they are... previously they'd lost to Leipzig 3-1. So that's their first win in 6. First win in 6 games. Interesting. Okay, right. We'll take another break there because that helps me with the edit for later. And we'll come back and we'll talk about St. Pauli. Maybe it's time for another drink. How's your German getting on? Like I say, you could use the time to learn some German. Maybe do a doodle. Maybe text someone that you've not been in touch with for a while. Maybe ask them what they're thinking about the Bundesliga. But anyway, we'll be right back. In Frankfurt and possibly Freiburg. And we're back again. And we're going to talk about St. Pauli versus Holstein Kiel in another sect puncter, another 6-pointer. So, there we go. Look. And we're back again. And we're going to talk about St. Pauli versus Holstein Kiel. Right, we are. Here we go. So our prediction for this game was that Holstein Kiel would win it 1-0 on the basis that both sides are going to be up for this game because, well, they're scrapping for their lives, effectively. You know, it's tight down the bottom of the Bundesliga table. If we just come back 1 second and start the narrative here. Look, see? What's that? 9, 10, 11. So 11 points separate the two sides. You know, there's actually 11 points between the bottom 4, which is a bigger part of the narrative. St. Pauli don't score many goals, you know, home or away. In fact, they've scored 9 at home at the Milan Tour. Actually, it was 8 before they got that last, 85th minute equaliser against Gladbach on match day 28. So they scored 9 at home and more away from home. It was 15 coming into this game. Whereas Holstein Kiel, in contrast, you know, they scored 19 at home, but they've shipped 36 goals. So it was an interesting case of two leaky defences. However, Holstein Kiel, they tend to touch the ball a lot at home. There are people like Lewis Holtby in the middle of the pitch, and I want to watch Armin Zigovic, the Bosnia and Herzegovina international in the attacking midfielder. Those sort of people tend to touch the ball, so they're more comfortable. So, you know, 6-pointers form kind of a bit, I guess, a bit like the KLASSIKER. Not that you would ever find any any Bundesliga analysts mentioning those two games in the same breath, but in the context that form goes out the window because there's so much riding on that game, really. So our prediction was that Kiel would win it 1-0. Again, St. Pauli just struggle. They score more away from home. But their last win on the road, by the way, was all the way back in match day 18, and that was against Heidenheim, who, again, if we look at the table, well, at that point, Heidenheim were in 17th, but they're currently in 16th. So, yeah, it's really bleak for those teams down the bottom. And look at that. Out of nowhere, we get a surprise because St. Pauli win the game 2-1 with a very late goal. If we look at the lineups, you know, as we've established, it's very classical for German teams to play 3 at the back. Very Italian, actually, isn't it, I suppose? I mean, culturally, they're two nations that are very far apart in terms of their cuisine and their fashion, their lust for life. But in terms of how they've set up these games, as you can see, Kiel have gone for a 3-5-2, and yet St. Pauli have gone for a 3-4-3. But there's still that rock of 3 at the back. All right, the 3 technically for St. Pauli, it's a 5 at the back because Treu and Saliakis are treated as wing backs. Elias Sad, interesting that Sad and Daniel Sinani, the guy from Luxembourg, the striker from Luxembourg, they've swapped because usually Elias Sad would be up front on his own. He's been pushed out to the left, and Dafo Afolainen, ex-Bolton Wanderers, he was our one to watch for the game, so he's been pushed out. Yeah, he came on as a sub. He's been treated very similar to how Stefan Baumgart treats Benedikt Hollerbach at Union Berlin. Alexander Blessing treating Afolainen as a super sub, but he started him in this game. And for Holstein Kiel, our previous one to watch was Alexander Bernhardsen, who can play either as an attacking midfielder, inside forward on the right, but he was up front with Machino, the Japanese striker. And our one to watch this game was Jigovic, like I say. And yeah, out of nowhere, we didn't really see that coming. I mean, Alexander Bernhardsson, he scored an absolute beauty for the go-ahead goal in the previous week against Mainz. I mean, Robert Zentner in goal for Mainz on that day was having a worldie. He was like everything. He was pulling off a string of like world-class saves. So it needed a world-class goal to beat him, and that's what happened on that game. So Bernhardsson's now scored 2 in 2. Daniel Sonani has been a previous one to watch of ours. He brings St. Pauli back into the game. That goal came from a throw-in on the left. He's on the outside of the inside box. Low shot, bottom right-hand corner. That's to pull the game back to 1-1. And then, yeah, as we can see at the death, he won't want reminding of that, but it's an own goal to win it. Yeah. Max Gershwil. Yeah, that's a real stinker, isn't it? That Max Gershwin coming on playing as a left-sided midfielder or wing-back, I suppose. But in this game, he was playing as a defensive left midfielder. Scores the own goal. What a way to lose a game, eh? 92 minutes. Oof, that's cruel. Excuse my stomach there. If we look at the stats, that's an interesting story, right? So St. Pauli have come away from home. They'd only scored, what do we say? They'd only scored 14 away from home up until that point, and have come and had 6 shots on target and scored twice. Technically scored once because the other one was an own goal, but there was pressure applied to the goal to produce it. Passing, yeah, I'm not surprised that the home side have sort of edged that 53%. I'm not surprised that we Kiel again, because they do and they are comfortable on the ball. 458 passes, 80% pass completion rate. Pretty close in terms of distances run. More sprints going off for Kiel. We can get an indication of that, can't we? Because it'll tell us. Look, Jackson Irvine, the Socceroo captain for St. Pauli. He's usually clocking up about 11.8, 12.2 Ks distance run per game. So he covers a lot of run. Not surprised that Daffo was the fastest person on the pitch, because he's usually bombing up and down that wing. He's young. He's got a lot of vibrancy, a lot of energy. Who was this? Well, technically no assists, right? Because that second one was an own goal. And Gigovic was the assist for the Bernhardsen goal. So they are. So we've got the people we've called out as the ones to watch. They've been involved in the action. We got the prediction wrong because we were convinced that Kiel were going to win 1-0 at home. St. Pauli have surprised all of us. And as we can see the impact on the table, well, Kiel are still stuck on the bottom on 18 points. St. Pauli, well, that 3 points puts more of a gap between them and Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim side. They're with only a point now of Hoffenheim in 14th. Again, there's no European competitions to play for, but that 16th place, as you know, is the relegation playoff. So I suppose if Heidenheim finished there, Frank Schmidt would be like, yeah, that'll do for us, because they would play whoever finishes third in the Zweite Bundesliga for that one-off playoff game. St. Pauli look to be clear. Let's just have a look at who they've got next. So St. Pauli have to travel to... Wow, they're hosting Leverkusen. Yeah. So again, all right, St. Pauli are 4th from bottom, but they still need the points to ensure. Alexander Blessing still needs the points to ensure their survival, just to give themselves enough breathing space. But that's a big game, right? That's a big game when Leverkusen come to town. And again, Leverkusen will need the win, because they'll need to keep up with Munich, regardless of how they get on in their fixture. And then they've got to go away to Bremen, playing Stuttgart at home, away to Frankfurt, who again will be slugging it out between themselves. Freiburg and Mainz, possibly Gladbach as well for a Champions League spot. And then look at that. They've rounded out the season with a game home tie at Bochum. And if we look at Holstein Kiel, who have they got to play? Next out, Holstein Kiel on their way to Leipzig. Again, they're pushing for Champions League because they want to keep that record going. Leipzig have been in the Champions League for 6 years in a row. And of course, they've got a new manager, the Hungarian Zsolt Löw, who reports into Jürgen Klopp. Now, both of those big characters are going to want Leipzig in the Champions League for a 7th consecutive year. So, yeah, and actually Löw might get the job on a permanent basis if he manages to qualify for the Champions League. So that's a big one. Gladbach, again, as we've already talked about there, they're fighting for European football. They want Champions League football. Augsburg have dropped off. You know, where are they quickly in the table? Augsburg are in 10th. At one point, they were in 6th. You know, it feels like their European dreams are failing as well, which is a real shame. But back to Kiel. Like we say, they've got Leipzig away, Gladbach home, travel to Augsburg, home to Freiburg, and away to Dortmund. So, yeah, interesting, isn't it? How the teams at the bottom could shape those that are pushing for aspirations at the top half. And we will recap this entire show at the end with a piece with a piece of data analysis, and then looking ahead to match day 30. Let's take another quick break, as is our want. Yeah, because it's good for my editing. Yeah, we'll be right back. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about Mönchengladbach. Yeah, we'll talk about Gladbach. In another sect puncture, another playoff game. St. Pauli look to be clear. Let's just have a look at who they've got next. So St. Pauli have to travel to. Wow, they don't. They're hosting Leverkusen. Yeah. So again, you know. All right, St. Pauli are 4th from bottom, but they still need the points to ensure. Yeah, Alexander Blessing still needs the points to ensure their survival, just to give themselves enough breathing space. But that's a big game, right? That's a big game when Leverkusen come to town. And again, Leverkusen will need the win because they'll need to keep up with Munich, regardless of how they get on in their fixture. And then they've got to go away to Bremen, playing Stuttgart at home, away to Frankfurt, who again will be slugging it out between themselves. Freiburg and Mainz, possibly Gladbach as well for a Champions League spot. And then look at that. They've rounded out the season with a game home tie at Bochum. And if we look at Holstein Kiel, who have they got to play? Next out, Holstein Kiel on their way to Leipzig. Again, they're pushing for Champions League because they want to keep that record going. Leipzig have been in the Champions League for 6 years in a row. And of course, they've got a new manager, the Hungarian Zsolt Löw, who reports into Jürgen Klopp. Now, both of those big characters are going to want Leipzig in the Champions League for a 7th consecutive year. So, yeah, and actually Löw might get the job on a permanent basis if he manages to qualify for the Champions League. So that's a big one. Gladbach, again, as we've already talked about there, they're fighting for European football. They want Champions League football. Augsburg have dropped off. You know, where are they quickly in the table? Augsburg are in 10th. At one point, they were in 6th. You know, it feels like their European dreams are failing as well, which is a real shame. But back to Kiel. Like we say, they've got Leipzig away, Gladbach home, travel to Augsburg, home to Freiburg, and away to Dortmund. So, yeah, interesting, isn't it? How the teams at the bottom could shape those that are pushing for aspirations at the top half. And we will recap this entire show at the end with a piece with a piece of data analysis, and then looking ahead to match day 30. Let's take another quick break, as is our want. Yeah, because it's good for my editing. Yeah, we'll be right back. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about Mönchengladbach. Yeah, we'll talk about Gladbach. In another sect puncture, another playoff game. And we're back again, and we're going to talk about Gladbach at home to Freiburg. Yeah, let's get that browser window up. So, Gladbach, Freiburg. So, there's the two teams going into the game. 4-2-3-1 for the home side. And Gironi, innit? Yeah. Gerardo Sioni. Oh, there you go. Up against... Oh, it's similar. Well, a four... Yeah. Yeah, similar structure. Let's put... Yeah. 4-2-3-1, but with with wider players. It's the same, isn't it? Pretty much. It's a double pivot in there. Gladbach, Nauhaus and Julian Weigl, who's usually the captain, versus Oostergaard and Maxi Eggestein, the hard-working Maxi Eggestein, in their double pivot for Freiburg. Instagram-friendly Robin Hack, the old boy Alassane Plessis and Frank Homrahat, the midfield trio for Gladbach with Tim Kleindist up front. Freiburg, Junior Adamu, our one to watch, being fed by Vincenzo Grifo, the veteran Italian, Lucas Hoyer and Ritsu Doen, the Japanese, who's previously we've called him out on the right wing. Those two, a lot of assists between them. I should probably know that, shouldn't I, really? Again. I can check. 8 assists for Grifo. 7. Okay, so 15 assists between those two wide players. That's fascinating. 8 goals for Doan. Oh, wow. So, wow. Goal involvements. Crazy. 16 goals and 15 assists between the two wide players. I suppose that is overcompensating for their out-and-out strikers. Yeah, Lucas Hoyer's only got 3, actually, all season. And I want to watch Junior Adamu, the Austrian. Well, those 2 goals that he scored were way back in match day... Was it match day 3? Or maybe it was the opening day. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, match day 3, I was right. 2 goals, 1 assist and a saucy red card for Junior Adamu this season. And in this one, yeah, there you go. There's how the two teams set up. There was the scores. Christian Gunter, well, he's an experienced player. Yeah. Yeah, experienced left back. That's a nightmare, isn't it? That's another game with another own goal. Yeah, so an own goal, a very quick reply. Look, Freiburg scored 2 minutes later through Patrick Oostergaard. That feels like that's his first goal this season. And then Freiburg win it late on. Johan Manzambi. Let's have a look at him quickly. So he's a midfielder this season. 1 goal. That is it. That's the 1 goal for the season. That's interesting. Of course, there's no back button on this. So I'm gonna have to do it manually. Freiburg. Who was just talking about there? Christian Gunter. Technically, that's 3 goals, isn't it? Because that was an own goal. He won't like me reminding him of that one. Hopefully he's watching. That'd be good, wouldn't it, if he was watching? I mean, this is a learning curve, isn't it? So you wouldn't have seen any of that. Oh, dear me. What am I like, eh? What am I like? Let's come back to that game. Anyway. So not only did Gladbach lose to a last-minute goal, they conceded an own goal to put themselves on the back foot. Oh, my. So they're getting an own goal from Freiburg, sorry. What am I talking about? Yeah. It's an own goal from Christian Gunter very early on. Oh, and then they lose it in the 90th minute to a substitute who scored his first goal this season. That's a real shock, honestly. In fact, there you look. Patient build-up from the back, looking for openings. The ball shuffled on the right flank where Ritz and Doan had space to cross. He chips a perfect ball across the area onto the on-rushing head of Manzabani. So that, although it's not credited, is it credited as an assist? If we look at the match centre. Yeah, it is, yeah. There you go. Yes, that's right, because he was on 7 assists before this game, and that's his 8th. That's still an incredible stat, though, right? That 15 goal assists from their 2 wide players, along with 16 goals. Wow. Okay, fascinating. Back to the stats. Let's just have a look at how the game sort of played out. So Freiburg came, had 7 shots on target and scored twice. Gladbach will feel that's disappointing, only managing 1 shot on target at home with that midfield again. With that attacking level of threat in midfield. That, yeah, Hack, Play, Honorhat. I mean, Julian Weigl, yeah, I mean he's got the ability to, he's got the vision to see a pass and to put a long ball up there and find out a man. Just seems disappointing, really, that a home team only managed 1 shot on target. And actually, look, they were chasing the ball. Look, Freiburg were dominating that game. Got outrun as well. Outrun, out-sprinted. Were dominated by crosses and corners. Yeah. So technically, Freiburg scored all 3 goals in that game and took the points. And the impact that's had on the table for Freiburg, well, as we said in our preview, it was going to be interesting because actually Freiburg have now jumped above Gladbach with that win and have sneaked into the last European spot for next season. They're currently in a Thursday night football Pat Nevin special. Pat Nevin's a Scottish footballer who I believe used to play for. He played for Celtic, didn't he? Yeah. Again, if there's anyone in the chat or anyone watching the VOD, please correct me on that. But I'm convinced anyway. Pat Nevin in the UK on when football used to be broadcast on Channel 5. I don't know how many channels you've got domestically in your individual countries, but in the UK we've got, core terrestrial channels. Everything's changed, hasn't it, with the with digital and cable service providers and people streaming games, like people like DAZN, and then people like us, that are commentating, and you got the DFB player and also all those different channels where you can get live football. Anyway, used to be a Thursday night on a football broadcast on Channel 5 was the voice of Pat Nevin, and yeah. So currently, as it stands, Freiburg are playing on those Thursday night footballs. It might even be covered by Pat Nevin, but we've still got 5 games to go. It's only a point difference. And Freiburg are only 3 points behind Leipzig for a Champions League spot. Freiburg, they've got to travel to Wolfsburg next on Easter weekend. As we've already talked about, Wolfsburg have now lost 4 in a row. Then they've got to play Leverkusen at home, which again could have an impact on the title. Then they're playing away at Kiel, which could impact the bottom of the table in the relegation fight. And then look at that, they've got to play Frankfurt on the final day of the season with Frankfurt. That could, this is a fascinating run in to the end of the season. As for Gladbach, well, they're away at Kiel as well, so they can inflict more damage. Or Kiel could look at that and think, we could, if we're lucky and plucky and we work hard, we could nick that. Then Hoffenheim, so they're playing a team that's in 18th, 15th, away at the current leaders, and then they're playing Wolfsburg, who by then might have lost 6 in a row, 7, 8 in a row. Who knows? Anyway, as it stands with that one, though, we got that prediction wrong. Freiburg turned up and scored all 3 goals and took the 3 points. Feels a bit like a smash and grab. Julian Schuster will be happy, though. He'll be happy because he'd lost 2 in a row and he stopped that, and he's back on the winning track. Whereas for Gladbach, well, that stops a 3-game unbeaten streak, which included 2 wins. That's their first loss in 5. Sorry, first loss in 4. Yeah. A lot of these teams are running out of games in their respective fights, either to stay in the division or stay in the Bundesliga or fighting for Europe. It's fascinating. Right, another quick cheeky break because I need some drinks because my throat's going dry because we've been on a long time. And we'll come back and we'll talk Augsburg. That's what we'll do when we come back. Don't go away. Well, feel free to walk around the room, or walk outside. It's a beautiful day. Don't know what the weather's like with you, but in the UK, in the north as well, where it's usually grim. It's grim up north. But good job we've got gravy. Be right back. So all those different channels where you can get live football. Anyway, used to be a Thursday night on a football broadcast on Channel 5 was the voice of Pat Nevin, and yeah. So currently, as it stands, Freiburg are playing on those Thursday night footballs. It might even be covered by Pat Nevin, but we've still got 5 games to go. It's only a point difference. And Freiburg are only 3 points behind Leipzig for a Champions League spot. Freiburg, they've got to travel to Wolfsburg next on Easter weekend. As we've already talked about, Wolfsburg have now lost 4 in a row. Then they've got to play Leverkusen at home, which again could have an impact on the title. Then they're playing away at Kiel, which could impact the bottom of the table in the relegation fight. And then look at that, they've got to play Frankfurt on the final day of the season with Frankfurt. That could, this is a fascinating run in to the end of the season. As for Gladbach, well, they're away at Kiel as well, so they can inflict more damage. Or Kiel could look at that and think, we could, if we're lucky and plucky and we work hard, we could nick that. Then Hoffenheim, so they're playing a team that's in 18th, 15th, away at the current leaders, and then they're playing Wolfsburg, who by then might have lost 6 in a row, 7, 8 in a row. Who knows? Anyway, as it stands with that one, though, we got that prediction wrong. Freiburg turned up and scored all 3 goals and took the 3 points. Feels a bit like a smash and grab. Julian Schuster will be happy, though. He'll be happy because he'd lost 2 in a row, and he stopped that, and he's back on the winning track. Whereas for Gladbach, well, that stops a 3-game unbeaten streak, which included 2 wins. That's their first loss in 5. Sorry, first loss in 4. Yeah, a lot of these teams are running out of games in their respective fights, either to stay in the division or stay in the Bundesliga or fighting for Europe. It's fascinating. Right, another quick cheeky break because I need some drinks because my throat's going dry because we've been on a long time, and we'll come back and we'll talk Augsburg. That's what we'll do when we come back. Don't go away. Well, feel free to walk around the room, or walk outside. It's a beautiful day. I don't know what the weather's like with you, but in the UK, in the north as well, where it's usually grim. It's grim up north. But good job we've got gravy. Be right back. And we're back again. I'm going to talk about Augsburg on the road to VfL Bochum. Bochum have got a great fanboy in Rise, or Ryan Rice from his Football Paradise channel. He won't enjoy this one. No, this would be X-rated. I think he was there actually, yeah, because he does travel. He does travel around Germany to watch Bochum, a team that he fell in love with. VfL, well, that's the team that plays the rock song at the start of the game. One of their fans is a famous 80s rock star, or I have to figure out his name next time. But I just checked, by the way. Pat Nevin played. Of course, he played for Chelsea. He played for Chelsea and Everton. Never played for either of the 2 Glasgow teams. He was born in Glasgow. That's why I said Celtic, because I was convinced that he'd played for the Green and White Hoops because he was born up there, but no. He did play for Motherwell and Kilmarnock, but yeah. Pat Nevin of Thursday Night Football on Channel 5 might be covering Freiburg. I mean, Julian Schuster will be open, so. Anyway, Bochum or Augsburg. This game, we came into it feeling that both of these sides were going to cancel each other out. And for an hour, we were spot on. We predicted 1-1, and like I say, for an hour it's going good. Let's have a look how the 2 teams set up first, so you can get an idea. So, again, 3 at the back for each. Bernardo Ordetz Uman, Maxi Vitek, Alexander Paslak. Side note, friend of mine, another YouTuber, Northern Pilgrim number 1. Jamie's got a career save on the go on FM. He streams usually Thursday and a Sunday between 9 and midnight BST. And he's managing West Ham at the minute. He's got Paslak in the side, and I was like, oh, I'm excited because Paslak, he plays. Felix Paslak plays in the Bundesliga. Of course, there's no back button. I need to figure that one out. Anyway, there you go. So Paslick and Tom Krause, Sissoko in the midfield. What a resilient player he is. And in the Greek, Masouras up front with the big man Philip Hoffman. And the away team, set up in a 3-4-3. Big Jeff Gulaway at the back. Slotterbeck, Kevin, elder brother of Nico. Unfortunately, he's currently out injured, and Nico from Dortmund's going to be missing the rest of the season. Hope he makes a quick recovery. Matt Seamer, who was credited with the own goal in the Bavarian derby. That's Augsburg's last game. They were 1-0 up in that, by the way. 1-0 up against Munich at home. Dimitri Giannalust with a rocket of a goal past Erbig on the 28th minute mark. They lost that game 3-1, but yeah, it looked like Leroy Sané had scored his 10th of the season, but it was actually credited to Krizlan Matsimo's own goal. So 3-4, Frank Onyeki, Jakic, Marius Wolf on the wide right, Giannalust on the left, Alex Claude Maurice, who was our one to watch this game, alongside the Finn, Fredrik Jensen, and then Samuel Essender up front. And like I say, Essender, well, he put Augsburg ahead. That was an assist from Alexis Claude Maurice. That's a good one. Clap that one in. Felix Passlack then equalises on the hour mark. That's a setup, or technically an assist from Philip Hoffman. That's his second of the season. Passlack with the goal. That's Passlack's first goal of the season. That was at 1-1. Then there's a red card on 80 minutes to Arne Meyer. That's his first red. Not many red cards in the Bundesliga this season. Both sides make a double switch. And then in the 90th minute, Philip Tietz sets up Philip Tietz. Oh, he came on as a sub. I was going to say, I didn't see his name in the starting lineup. He came on for a sender and played up top. He sets up Mert Kuma, also off the bench. Mert Kuma, the Turkish 19-year-old, that's his second goal of the season, and they win it late on. Wow. There you go. Augsburg win 2-1 away. Look at the stats. 5 on target versus 8 for the home team. Dead level in terms of possession. Quite an even game. Pretty even in terms of distances covered per kilometre and number of sprints. Augsburg putting in more tackles. Big Jeff, he's turned up, hasn't he, in that game? Big Jeff alongside Matisma and Slotterbeck, and I can tell you a bit more on that actually. More of those tackles were coming in from, wow, Sissoko from the home team. He put in three of his, and then it's Matt Seamer with 3. Jeff, yeah, so him and Big Jeff, that's 5 successful tackles out of 14 for the away side. And it's a smash and grab and they win the game 2-1. And we've got egg on our face with another loss. What's the impact on the table? Let's have a look at that then. So let's have a look for Augsburg. So that lifts them up from 11th into 10th. They go above Stuttgart. Stuttgart lost. We'll cover that one soon. Augsburg on 42 points. So they're only 3 points off Freiburg. Again, Augsburg last season were in a similar place, pushing for European football, and so lost 5 out of the last 6 games and just dropped off. Let's have a look at Augsburg. Who have they got left to play? So next up, they host Frankfurt again. So as a team pushing to get into Europe versus a team that's currently in the Champions League spots. And then they have to travel to Leverkusen, could have an impact on the title. Away at Kiel, could have an impact on the bottom. Stuttgart are chasing, like Augsburg, because they've just gone above them. And then Union Berlin, well, that could be a bit of a dead rubber. Although, you never know, for Augsburg, it could mean everything, because, like I said, they're pushing to be featured in Europe. Whereas we can see the impact for Bochum. Sorry, yeah. For Bochum then, they're in 17th. So there's only 2 points between themselves and Kiel. Kiel with that loss, as we talked about. Kiel losing 2-1 at home to St. Pauli. Yeah, so Bochum are 2 points above Kiel, 2 points behind Heidenheim, who we haven't covered that game yet, but we will, because they were away at the Deutsche Bank Park playing Frankfurt. Dino Topmüller's side, who are also, like we said, also pushing to hold on to that coveted 3rd place. Forget about 1 and 2, because it's obviously going to be between now and the end of the season. It's Munich and Leverkusen vying for the title, and it's anything from 3rd downwards. So yeah, interesting times. Who have Bochum got left to play? Let's have a look at their fixtures. So next up, they're hosting the Street Fighters Union Berlin. So no, they're away at Bremen. Then they're hosting the Street Fighters of Union Berlin. Away at Heidenheim, another Sek Punkte. Play Mainz, could impact their Champions League ambitions. And then St. Pauli. Whoa, that's a tasty one to finish. Wow. The football gods are really teeing this one up to be an interesting end of the season at both top and bottom ends. Wow. So there you go. So another short break for us, and we'll come back and we'll talk about Stuttgart and Werder Bremen. We'll talk about that game on Sunday, the mid-afternoon kickoff. Hopefully you're still keeping up with us. Feel free to leave any comments in the chat. Like and subscribe. It's always at your free will, but it does help boost the awareness of the channel. So this is a live stream. It will be edited down into a VOD. I'll make myself laugh when I say edited down because we've been streaming for nearly 2 hours. Right, quick break. We'll be right back and we'll talk about Stuttgart, Nick Voltemade, Chris Furyk, and Jamie Leveling and co. versus Romano Schmidt and Werder Bremen. We'll be right back. Turned up Annie in that game. Big Jeff alongside my team, Matisma and Slotterbeck, and I can tell you a bit more on that actually. More of those tackles were coming in from, wow, Sissoko from the home team. He put in three of his, and then it's Matt Seamer with 3. Jeff, yeah, so him and Big Jeff, that's 5 successful tackles out of 14 for the away side. And it's a smash and grab and they win the game 2-1. And we've got egg on our face with another loss. What's the impact on the table? Let's have a look at that then. So let's have a look for Augsburg. So that lifts them up from 11th into 10th. They go above Stuttgart. Stuttgart lost. We'll cover that one soon. Augsburg on 42 points. So they're only 3 points off Freiburg. Again, Augsburg last season were in a similar place, pushing for European football, and so lost 5 out of their last 6 games and just dropped off. Let's have a look at Augsburg. Who have they got left to play? So next up, they host Frankfurt again. So as a team pushing to get into Europe versus a team that's currently in the Champions League spots. And then they have to travel to Leverkusen, could have an impact on the title. Away at Kiel, could have an impact on the bottom. Stuttgart are chasing, like Augsburg, because they've just gone above them. And then Union Berlin, well, that could be a bit of a dead rubber. Although, you never know, for Augsburg, it could mean everything, because, like I said, they're pushing to be featured in Europe. Whereas we can see the impact for Bochum. Sorry, yeah. For Bochum then, they're in 17th. So there's only 2 points between themselves and Kiel. Kiel with that loss, as we talked about. Kiel losing 2-1 at home to St. Pauli. Yeah, so Bochum are 2 points above Kiel, 2 points behind Heidenheim, who we haven't covered that game yet, but we will, because they were away at the Deutsche Bank Park playing Frankfurt. Dino Topmüller's side, who are also, like we said, also pushing to hold on to that coveted 3rd place. Forget about 1 and 2, because it's obviously going to be between now and the end of the season. It's Munich and Leverkusen vying for the title, and it's anything from 3rd downwards. So yeah, interesting times. Who have Bochum got left to play? Let's have a look at their fixtures. So next up, they're hosting the Street Fighters Union Berlin. So no, they're away at Bremen. Then they're hosting the Street Fighters of Union Berlin. Away at Heidenheim, another Sek Punkte. Play Mainz, could impact their Champions League ambitions. And then St. Pauli. Whoa, that's a tasty one to finish. Wow. The football gods are really teeing this one up to be an interesting end of the season at both top and bottom ends. Wow. We're back again. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for sticking with us. Again, we it's like anything in life, right? The more you practice, the better you get. So this is our debut stream, just to recap. So this is the German Football Spotlight channel where Gonzo and I are very passionate about the Bundesliga. In fact, we're very passionate about all the different tiers of football, whether it's Zweite Bundesliga, Liga 3. We've covered the DFB Pokal this season. We're following Dortmund and Munich in the Champions League. How much further we'll follow them, well, that remains to be seen, because they've both got important second leg games coming up this week. Munich away at Inter, 2-1 down. Dortmund at home against Barcelona at the Westfalenstadion, 4-0 down. Feels like that tie's over. Anyway, this is currently match day 29, so every week we do a preview show of all the games. We pick out a player to watch, we make a prediction of the scoreline, we come up with some data about the team's forms, and then after that weekend we do a reaction show or a review show where we look at the games, we look at the goals, the incidents, the data, and we see how we got on with our predictions, and then we move on with our lives. And we play some Football Manager in between, and we open some stickers. We do all the things that other content creators that are interested in football do. So that's where we are. We've nearly covered all the games. We've got 2 more. Technically, we've got 2.5 because we did sort of jump in on Wolfsburg and Leipzig. We're going to pick up now with Stuttgart hosting Werder Bremen. Werder Bremen, by the way, coming to this game with the 3rd best away record in the Bundesliga, behind Mainz and Munich. Here we go then. Let's have a look at this game. So let's pick up on it. So the two teams lined up like this. 4-2-3-1 for Stuttgart, the home side, taking on a... Oh, what's that? 4-3-5-2. Technically a 5-3-2, because Felix Agu and Mitchell Weiser, they're both wing backs. Yeah, we may as well finish off Werder, right? So Michael Zetter in goal, Amos Piper, Marcus Friedler, Ned Stark. It's not Ned Stark, obviously, because he's a Game of Thrones character. Forget his first name. I could tell you though, couldn't I? Nicholas Stark. Oh, close, right? Said it was N. He said it was N. So look at the lineups again. Need to fix this back button. Felix Agu, left wing back. Mitchell Weiss on the right. Sinny Leinen, who was having a stormer of a season, is a defensive midfielder. He's playing the likes of Romano Smith, allowing him to go forward, and Jan Stager, the Norwegian. And then we've got Oliver Burke and the mighty Marvin Dushk up front. We'll come on to Ollie Burke and that redemption story soon. As for the starting lineup for Stuttgart, Alexander Nubel in goal. He's on loan from Munich for the season. He might go back. He might stay where he is. We don't know yet. We'll have to follow that contract situation. Maxi Mittelstad, left back. Sturrigu, I forget his first name. Leonardis. Of course he is, because he's Swiss Greek. Again, I think I've made that comment that you don't get many of them for a Euro. Big Jeff Chabot, who did go off with a hamstring injury, and I want to say it's Felix. It's something funky in it. Finn. There you go. Finn Yelts. Love that name. Always reminds me of Adventure Time. We're getting there. Chris Furyk, Nick Voltemade, Jamie Levelin. That's the three playing behind Ermin Demirovic, who's the hat-trick hero in their 4-0 thumping away to Bochum. 4-2-3-1 versus 3-5-2 or 5-3-2. And this is how it played out, as you can see. Fascinating game. Stuttgart took the lead on the 19th minute through Leonardis Sturgu. That was an assist from Angelo Stiller, no relation to Ben. He was our one to watch, by the way, for Stuttgart. It's quite a feisty one. Number of yellow cards flying around. Atakan Karazor, Jens Stark. Voltemade gets a yellow and then gets sent off for his second yellow card, which... And I've watched this back a few times, and even the commentators were sort of questioning, really? I mean, he's a wiry lad, isn't he? Nick Voltemade. He's tall. He's like 6'4". He's quite thin, but he's all armed. You know, he's be wicked on the dance floor. He's very Peter Crouch actually, which there's a compliment in there to both of them somewhere. So he gets sent off, and all of a sudden they were a player down in a key part of the pitch, which provided more space. And as we know, football is really all about occupying and then finding the space and then being able to pass around a team, right? So there was more space opened up on the pitch, but you wouldn't have thought it, right? Because for right up until that Oliver Bert winning goal, you wouldn't have thought Stuttgart were down to 10. Because they seem to be in possession, creating their own chances, and Leonardo Bittencourt, well, he came on as a sub for Jens Steg, who was suffering a little bit with injury. He came on. It was his through ball because, again, Stuttgart, well, they still have 4 people at the back. It's not like they were defenders short, although Big Jeff did go. Did he go off? Yeah, he went off for Ramon Hendricks in the first half. Yeah, Ramon Hendricks is no slouch. He's younger. He's pretty quick. And they were caught out, basically. Caught out ball watching. It was a brilliant run from Ollie Burke, who, first time finish. He's quick. He really, like, the acceleration on Ollie Burke is quite frightening. Like, one-on-one with anybody. Yeah, he just made mincemeat of that. He ate that space up and put it beyond Nubel, and it was on the 90th minute, 2-1, and they saw the game out. There wasn't much injury time, as there doesn't seem to really be in Bundesliga football, not this year anyway. Brennan still had time to swap out Romano Smith for Marco Grill, who came in from... He was playing in Austria. He might have been playing for these lads. Oh, you can't see, because... Anyway, here, SK Reader. I went there. You can check out my photos of that on Instagram, at German Football Spotlight. Yeah. Werder Bremen were lucky in a sense because they capitalised on having the extra man. That's 3 games on the spin that they've won now. Yeah, they've scored, what have they scored? 7 goals now in 3 games. 3 wins on the spin, 2 away wins in a row. Actually, they've won 3 away games on the road. Like I say, it's the second best away record in the Bundesliga this season. And we'll come back and just have another quick look to see it out. The stats for the game. They came and had 4 shots on target, so they matched the home side. The possession was very much, 51-49. Well, funny enough, they put in more passes, even though they saw less of the ball. Neck and neck, I guess, in terms of distances run. Slightly out sprinted by the home side. 1 more tackles, because again, that's a feature actually. Both, if I remember this rightly, Kiel, Bochum, Heidenheim, and Werder are some of the top 4 teams in terms of like just launching themselves into tackle, making blocks, making key interceptions. Basically, they're a stubborn team. Werder, they're a stubborn team. It's just a shame that they had a bit of a dip in the new year and just lost a lot of games. They went 4 games, 4 losses on the spin. They could be a lot higher in the table if it wasn't for that. Still, I want to watch for Stuttgart. So he matched Stanley Leyland in terms of like running 12Ks for the game. Oliver Bert, like I say, is lightning fast, 35.15 kilometres per hour. And Nick Voltemada, before he was sent off, was winning everything that was put up to him in the air. However, football's a game of space, and it takes a second to score a goal, and that's what happened for Werder Bremen. If we look at the impact on the table, so look for the Stuttgart, Augsburg moved above them, so they dropped down to 11th. They won 40 points, which is 5 short of Freiburg, which is the last European spot. Again, looks like Stuttgart are going to be dependent upon other teams and the results. Stuttgart next up. They've got to host Heidenheim, who again are scrapping for their Bundesliga status under Frank Schmidt. They then go and... Oh, that's weird. Oh, that's home game. Sorry. So they go away to Union Berlin. They host Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim. They go away to St. Pauli, so they're playing 2 of the bottom 4 teams back to back. Then they play Augsburg, who themselves have gone above them, who are vying for Europe. And then they see out the season away to Leipzig, who could be pivotal in terms of their Champions League places. As for Werder Bremen, like we said, that's 3 wins on the spin, and their fixtures. They are at home to Bochum, 2 home games on the spin, home to Bochum, home to St. Pauli, away to Union, away to Leipzig, hosting Frank. So by the time they get to Heidenheim, they could be putting on a send-off party for Heidenheim into the Zweite Bundesliga by that point. But yeah, as it stands then, Werder have gone up a place into 9th, same points as Dortmund. Could they? I mean, we've been saying this in the preview show. Could Brennan? Could they really nick it into Europe? I don't know. I mean, they'll be feeling hurt that they didn't make it through to the DFB Pokal semi-final. I mean, they lost to the fairy tale run that Arminia Bielefeld are having. They lost that quarter-final game 2-1 and went out of the competition. 9th. 42 points, 3 points off Freiburg. I mean, they've got to keep winning, but they've won 3 in a row now, so they're doing everything they can to keep their chances up. Take another quick break another quick break, so I can take on some water because my throat's a bit sore, and then we can round this out. Well, we'll just touch briefly on Wolfsburg and Leipzig, and then the last game of the weekend on Sonntag was Frankfurt hosting Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim. We'll do that very soon. Don't go away. I mean, don't leave the channel, I should say. If you're on a mobile phone, like and subscribe and take it with you. Be careful, look up, don't walk into the road, be safe at all times. Don't do it while you're driving. On a train, absolutely. Preferably with earphones in. Nothing worse, is there, than something like 7 things blaring out. And nobody wants my voice blaring out loud when they're on a train. So yeah, be safe, get a drink. I'll be right back. Right, I'm back, and I've just noticed Put On the Shades is in the chat, and it's given me four thumbs up. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's exciting. Thanks for joining along with the ride. I'm assuming those thumbs up means you're enjoying the content, not a reference to the direction that Werder Bremen are travelling, their trajectory in the Bundesliga. But either way, yeah, both are very much appreciated. Thank you so much for that gesture. We're just going to jump back in then, just to sort of round things out. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the final game of the weekend, which was Frankfurt versus Heidenheim. Dino Topmuller versus Frank Schmidt. Here's the lineups for the two sides. So 4-2-3-1 for Frankfurt. Santos in goal. Kevin Trapp was there. He was up in the. I mean, it's a massive ground. I've never been to it. It's on my dream list. It's a huge stadion, the Wahl Stadion, or the Deutsche Bank Park. Huge. You know, you can sit right at the top. He was up there in the gods, watching it in a nice casual buttoned-up shirt and jumper. Anyway, Santos was in goal, the Brazilian. It was Thete, the Belgian, next to Robin Koch. Tuta, Rasmus Christian, the Gypsy from Leeds of the Midlands as a right back. Young brother to Rasmus, Oscar Hoyland, alongside our one to watch, Ellis Skiri, the other DM in that double pivot. And then John Matteo Bohoya on the left of the attacking midfield spots. Young Uzan in the middle. Chaibi on the right. And then Hugo Ekete leading the Frankfurt line. What's this? Quick comment from Pot on the Shades. Enjoying the content stream. Munich Dortmund was great. Everything the Prem is missing in quality. Keep up the good work. Absolutely, all those 3 points. Thank you for the support. That means so much to me. It's obviously it's not real, right? It's not real, but he feels like he is. I totally agree. Yeah. What did I watch this weekend? Apart from all the Bundesliga football, I was part of a watch along with Liverpool hosting West Ham through someone else who is a regular content streamer, Taffman10. Found him through his FM saves. What a fascinating character. But yeah, I agree. Just in terms of the atmosphere as well, right? It feels like it's unrivaled. I love the fact that the Bundesliga games where the home team will stand in a line and either take a lot of shit from the ultras or take their praise, and everyone jumps up and down doing the pass now and they clap it out, right? I love that. I love that relationship that the players have got with the fans, which you don't really have, do you? You don't really have that in the Premiership. Slight side note, as someone that goes to Hull City, Tim Walter, German, came in from Hamburg. I mean, that guy, he didn't last very long, lasted 18, 19 games. Away at Luton, he complained, his defence of not acknowledging the away fans was that it was a long way to walk and it was too wet and he wanted to get inside and change his clothes. I mean, come on, mate. You gotta have a dialogue with the fans, especially when they're travelling. And Germany, as I found out last summer, is a huge country, right? Literally. I went from Leipzig down to Wolfsburg. That was like a 7-hour train journey. So the fans are covering some distances, right? So yeah, I love that relationship between the fans and the ultras, especially in the home section. Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Stick around anyway because we're nearly done. We'll have a quick look at Heidenheim then. So they're going with what's that? 3-5-2, or technically a 5-5-3-2, I suppose. Sieberslin, Manika, Bush at the back, Kevin Muller in goal, young Franz Kratzig on loan from Munich, Nicholas Dorsch, Jan Schnoppner, who was our one to watch, Jimmy Traore on the right. It's not Jimmy Traore, obviously. And then Beck and Piringer, the Swiss guy up front. And how did it finish up? Yeah, it ended up being a bit of a walkover, right? Frankfurt turned them over, which was a shame because, yeah, I'm not surprised, really. Again, you look at those two sides on paper, there's more quality in that Frankfurt side. And again, if I just quickly remind myself, I mean, I don't really need to. our prediction was that Frankfurt were going to win 2-0. And like most of the games and most of our predictions were so close. And then either the home or the away team scores that extra goal and completely destroys it. We said 2-0. It ended up being 3. If we look at where the goals came from, so Faris Chaibi, who was playing in the middle instead of... Who was he playing instead of? Because that's usually not Collins. Usually Brown, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah. Chibi sets up the first goal for Bahoya, and at that point I'm feeling really smug because we called him out as a one to watch. The 19-year-old French attacking midfielder. That was his second goal this season for Bahoya. As for Chaibi, that was his first assist. Robin Koch, that guy's played in the national team, right, up until recently. Has he played for Julian? No, maybe he hasn't played for Julian Nagelsmann. He was playing under Hansi Flick, I know that much. He scores his second goal of the season. Quadruple subs made by Frank Smith to try and claw the deficit back. And then right on later, 71st minute, Nathaniel Brown comes on for Chaz Ozan, finds Ekete, who makes it 3-0, and that's Ekete's 14th goal of the season. So I'm going to have to do some work when we get into the data hub and change up where these players have finished. Yeah. Frankfurt 3, Heidenheim 0. Again, not surprising. We got a prediction wrong, but that's okay. Look at the stats. 7 shots on target out of 11. Credit to Heidenheim. Came and had a go. Again, very stubborn team. I actually saw more of the ball. That's interesting. More passes as well on the board. But again, football, what's it about? It's about space. It's about finding other players. It's about decisive thinking. It's about vision flirt. It's about catching the other team out of possession. Both cover the same distances. More sprinting going on from Frankfurt. As you can see, Ellis Skiliar one to watch, and Ekete, along with Sir Lord Conte, who came on as a sub at half time. Yeah, there you go. Kind of regulation home win, to be fair. We did call it, but we didn't call it at 3-0. We did call it out. What's that done to the table? Well, for Frankfurt, that does consolidate their third place. They're now on 51 points. Again, forget about the top two because that's a narrative within a bigger story. Frankfurt are now 3 points clear of Leipzig, even though Leipzig did win. They've obviously won 2 more games because they've won 15 games this season. As for poor Heidenheim, well, they're stuck in that relegation playoff spot. But you know what? If you'd have said to Frank Smith at the start of the season, you're going to finish in 16th and you're going to have to play a one-off game to stay in the Bundesliga, he'd have bit your hand off. Absolutely. Or he'd tilted his head even further to the left. Oh, a bit savage, but you know what I mean. Anyway, let's have a look at what's coming up next for Frankfurt. Frankfurt are away at Augsburg, so again, that's another battle for 2 teams going for European places, or Frankfurt will be looking to steal their Champions League spots. They host Leipzig, again, that's another team that's going for Champions League. Away at Mainz, well, up until recently, Mainz were above them in 3rd, Frankfurt were down in 4th, so that's got fascinating implications for the end of the season for Champions League spots. St. Pauli, the visit to the Deutsche Bank Park in the penultimate game, and then in the last game of the season they're away to Freiburg. Again, that's really interesting because you never know, by that point Freiburg would probably be needing the points depending upon how Mainz and Leipzig are getting on. So this run-in, oh man, I can't wait to see how it all plays out, and you can see how it all plays out here. Again, please like, subscribe. It is free. This content is coming at you free from 2 very passionate fans of the Bundesliga. As for their opposition, Heidenheim, what's going on with them in terms of their fixtures? How does their runs? So they host the leaders, Munich, next up. Oh dear me. Mind you, the Heidenheim's previous last home game was against Leverkusen, and it was an ex-Aston Villa, Emmanuel Buendia. He did a Leverkusen and scored on the 91st minute. So they narrowly lost out to Leverkusen. Let's see how they get on to Munich. Then they travel to Stuttgart, who again are pushing for European places. Then they host Bochum, another Sechspunkter. That's two teams that are, there's only 2-point gap between them. Then they go to Union. By that point, I suspect Union will be safe. And then they host Werder Bremen, who could very much be playing for European football in that final game. So, yeah, very interesting how this season's going to close out. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll touch on Leipzig, and then we'll get out of here. Right. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. We've nearly done. I promise you. All I ask is another 4 minutes. Be right back. The Swiss guy up front. And how did it finish up? Yeah, it ended up being a bit of a walkover, right? Frankfurt turned them over, which was a shame because, yeah, I'm not surprised really. Again, you look at those two sides on paper, there's more quality in that Frankfurt side. And again, if I just quickly remind myself, I mean, I don't really need to. Our prediction was that Frankfurt were going to win 2-0. And like most of the games and most of our predictions were so close. And then either the home or the away team scores that extra goal and completely And we're back. Like I say, we've only got one more game, well, game to half cover. And that was the opening game for the weekend on Freitag, which was Wolfsburg hosting Leipzig. We did touch on it up front, but that was me trying to make a point about how watching a live game and having a phone and like a score app on your phone can just kill the excitement. Catches me out a lot at home, like I say, and we've got pretty fast broadband here in Hull in the north of England, and yet Friday night, Wolfsburg Leipzig, that caught me out because a triple whammy, because it was live score, Bundesliga app telling me, yeah, there's been a goal. I was like, oh, what? And then the goal goes in, and you're like, yeah, note to self, turn those apps off. So again, we've sort of covered it slightly, but let's see it out. So I'll jump back up. Fixtures and results. Friday evening, 5-goal thriller. Here's the lineups just quickly. It's another 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, depending on how you want to distinguish between that defensive line and the midfield. Versus Leipzig in a 4-2. Oh, interesting, a 4-2-4, yeah, because they've got Simmons and Riddle Baku, which does sound like the plot line of an espionage movie set in the Middle East. It's an L. Ron Hubbard novel, isn't it? Riddle Baku. 4-2-4 with Louis Openda and Benjamin Sesko, who hasn't scored a single goal with his head all season. Peter Glassy in goal, 13 clean sheets so far this season. He had a howler at home to Hoffenheim in match day 28 when he literally just threw the ball straight out to Torre, who found the golden boy Tom Bischoff, who scored from 30 yards out. So Lakibi, who they bought a couple of years ago for like 20 odd million euro. Bishibashu. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, Bishibu. Yeah, Lakiba, Bishibu, Kloisterman, Nedjekovic, who's on loan from Aston Villa, Arthur Vermeeren and Nicholas Seawald as the double pivot. Javi Simons, Riddle Baku, Openda, Shesko. There's your Leipzig team. And for Wolfsburg, it's Grabara who's sporting that Phantom of the Opera mask. Do you know, and again, as a former goalkeeper, you get injured. Who's commented that? Benjamin Tesco. Oh, clap that in. That is brilliant. If I had some emotes and some sounds, I would acknowledge that one. I love that. Yeah, Benjamin Tesco. Brilliant. I mean, Arsenal want him, right? Gonzo keeps telling me that Arsenal are putting... Mind you, they're always putting bids in for people and never following through, right? Anyway, yeah, I love that. Benjamin Tesco. Right, so yeah, Grabara, Phantom of the Opera. The goal that Hollerbach scored for Union Berlin last time out, whatever happened to him in terms of an injury has really knocked his confidence. He doesn't seem to be the same keeper as he was because, he doesn't seem to commit as much. Mind you, look at Peter Cech, right? And that's probably an interesting piece of data analysis to do. What was his performance like pre and post at both Chelsea and Arsenal after he wore that boxing headgear, right? Because it affects your confidence when you're coming for crosses because the opposition players know when to stick a Sunday League elbow, right? A top stiff elbow in your face. So, yeah, anyway, Grabara in goal, Odegu, Denis Vavro from Slovakia, Fischer on the right, so it's a back three. Gerhardt, Jacob Kaminski was our one to watch, and we said he might appear as a sub, but he started and then was subbed out. Maxi Arnold holding that midfield together. Patrick Wimmer next playing alongside Dardai as the sort of attacking two midfielders, and then that's Amore up front alongside Jonas Wind, again, favourite of mine on Football Manager if you can pick him up. He definitely scores a lot. Plays as a deep line forward. Like a Danish Harry Kane. He swaps his hair around a lot as well. Very Florian Wirtz in terms of his haircut and his styling and his colour. So that's the two lineups anyway. And yeah, our prediction of a 1-0 went out the window when Javi Simon scored that second. And like I said, when the apps were pinging off, telling me and spoiling the fun. So Wolfsburg have now lost 4 in a row. That's 6. Did we say it was 6 or 5? 5 goals conceded in 4 games. Leipzig, that's 2 wins on the spin. So Zotlo's doing things to turn it around for Leipzig. They started to score. They started to score on the road, which is really positive. In fact, if I remember rightly, they hadn't won away since match day 13, which is way before the winter break. Christ, imagine that. A team of Leipzig's stature in the Champions League for 6 years in a row. All right, their Champions League campaign this year was a horror show, but they haven't won away up until that point, until match day 13. Wow, okay. So yeah, I can understand why our prediction was that Leipzig would win it 1-0 because they don't score many on the road. They don't really win many on the road, but they've got a new manager bounce. Wolfsburg are terrible at home, but are better living out of a suitcase away from home. And yeah, again, as I said at the top of the show, Wolfsburg they have got a lot of goals in them. In fact, if I remember rightly, they let's just quickly check that because it's going to be a -2, -3 goal difference. Is that right? If we have a look for Wolfsburg at home, yes, -2, yeah. So scored 25, conceded 27. Yeah, like I say, lost 2 in a row at home, lost 4 in a row all told. Oof, that's not good, is it? So what's our friend said? Havertz 2-0. Not a fan of the Slovenian lurch. Czech wasn't the same after his head injury. Chelsea absolutely got the best of him. Yeah, totally agree. Putting them shades on. Totally agree. Yeah. Havertz 2.0. Oh, yeah, it's you, isn't it? Yes. Sorry, I think it's you, right? It's if you're from the Taffman 10 community, then you're an absolute legend anyway for following me on a Monday afternoon. But if you are the same person, like that, your dedication of playing an FM stream as Hull City really That actually did reduce me to tears of joy because I was struggling. Yeah, my mental health was struggling. I thought it was you. Thank you so much. Yeah, what a legend you are. Yeah, honestly, that stream, and I should have given you more attention. I'm really sorry that I didn't. I've been struggling, man. In that hospital, mental health has been all over the place. I tried throwing myself into this to sort of lift myself up, literally keep myself alive. And actually being part of that community with the Taft man and people like you, have kept me going over these last few months. So yeah, before I start screaming and crying with on stream, which would probably make for good content actually, probably better than the shit that I'm ruffling on about for the last 2.5 hours. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really enjoyed your lead stream as well. Again, I was watching the Bielsa ball while I was in hospital. That was keeping me going. Anyway, so where do we get to? Yeah, Wolfsburg, 4 in a row they've lost. What's the impact on the table for Leipzig? Well, they're in 4th, like I say, 48 points, 3 off Frankfurt in 3rd. It's looking good. It's looking good for Leipzig in terms of Champions League places. It wasn't under Marco Rose, and I felt sorry for him because no one really likes to see any manager get fired. Although it was time for Tim Walter to go at Hull, but you know what I'm saying, right? Nobody likes it, and even that I felt horrible because that guy came in as a like Sting in New York. Walter came in as an alien to the UK, had to learn a new language, a different culture, had to get used to Hull. You know, no one loves us, we don't care. We're stuck out in the fucking middle of nowhere, right? You've got to need a reason to come here, not just as an away fan, just anyone, right? You've either got a meeting, you're taking the family to the deep, or you've come to see what's left of the European City of Culture 2017, right? You need a reason to come here. So he had to come here, adapt to everything. His personality didn't fit with the players. It didn't work out. He didn't get the relationship with the players, didn't get the results on the pitch, and he had to go. Nice payoff, don't get me wrong, because Adjan likes to look after his players and his staff, but it didn't work out, did it? And that's someone from a different culture stuck in Hull. Christ, I won't wish that on anybody. Maybe my ex-wife. But she's raising the children. Anyway, back to this one. So Leipzig, in 4th. Sorry, Marco Rose. But the signings that you made, and I've touched on this in a different video, you did bring Marcus Thuram to the Bundesliga when you were at Gladbach, and look at what a beast he's become, right? As Munich are going to find out in that second leg in the Champions League. As for Wolfsburg, well, they're down in 12th. No movement. They're still on 38 points. They're safe. They don't have anything to worry about. There's no cup competitions. There's no European glory for them. Who do they play in their fixtures that are coming up? Let's have a quick look at Wolfsburg. And again, I really like Wolfsburg. Apart from okay. It's the home of Volkswagen, right? It's the car manufacturing plant. And the whole place does stink of an interesting combination of plastic and rubber. And again, I suppose a bit like Hull, Wolfsburg, you need a reason to go there. And I assume you're one of many Japanese businessmen that's come over to buy cars. So anyone going to Wolfsburg is there to buy transport. They're there to buy vehicles. So I guess you're kind of used to that smell that's in the air. I wasn't. Anyway, I enjoyed myself. I made friends with 10, 11, 12 Bayern Munich fans. It was a great atmosphere in the ground. So, like I say, 5 goals on that day. There were 5 goals on Freitag. Anyway, they've got to go away to Mainz, who, like Frankfurt, are scrapping for Champions League. They've got to host Freiburg, who will be pushing for Europe. They've got to play Dortmund. Again, they'll be pushing for Champions League. They're hosting Hoffenheim. That's an academic game. And then they've got to play Gladbach. They've got to go away to Gladbach, who will also be pushing for Champions League. So, but Wolfsburg are pretty damn good on the road. Does it smell better than Marmite? Yeah. I did get hung up on that in a previous video trying to explain that, is it Marmite? Is it Vegemite? Either way. A bit like Mesut Ozil, and you like that, right? And now you know that we are sort of closet Arsenal fans. You can't probably see him there, so I'll have to bring it up to the camera, but yeah. He was like Marmite, wasn't he? But we liked him. And funny enough, who did he play for? You'll know this before me, so feel free to beat me to the punchline. Was it Wolfsburg? I know Kevin De Bruyne used to play for Wolfsburg. In fact, I covered that in a previous video about the DFB Pokal. because they beat one of Klopp's last games managing Dortmund, WOLFSBURG, because Nicholas Bentner was on the bench. I remember that video now. Yes, that great quote of, well, you know, in my head, I'm the best footballer in the world. I just turn out, if I think it, I do it. Yeah, okay. Nice one, mate. Nice one. Mesut Ozil. It was Werder Bremen, wasn't it? Yeah, of course I should have known that. Schalke, Werder, Real, Arsenal. Yeah, should have known that. Yeah, thank you. So I'm still adapting to this. Like, I should have bought a second monitor. One of my other friends was right, but I mean, this fucking monitor's 32 inches. Christ, that would make you sore, wouldn't it? You'd probably have to rub Marmite on that. Where did we get to? Yeah, so we covered up Ozil, Prima Madrid, Schalke, Werder Bremen. Interesting running. Nothing really to play for. And that's the table. So, wow. That's been fun. It's been great to have you in. Put the shades on. Thank you so much. Or put on the shades. That's brilliant. It's really made my day, that. So what I'll do is, for the VOD, I will go through the data hub and try and, with a bit more scripting, keep it a bit tighter. So in the VOD, we'll cover leading goal scorer, assist makers, clean sheets. We'll look at the table top and bottom, and we'll get out of here. We'll do it that way. So thank you so much. And to anybody else that jumped in that didn't comment but just was along for the ride, thank you so much. Gonzo there, next to Ozil. I've been Craig. This has been the German Football Spotlight Show. We've covered off match day 29, all the goals, all the drama. Actually, I didn't really say it at the time, but yeah, the prediction for the Stuttgart-Werder Bremen game was 2-2. So we were close, right? We were really close. What's this question? Will he be doing a Bundesliga 11? Oh, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, of course it will. Yeah. So again, there's 5 games to go in the rest of the season. The DFB Pokal final is the 24th. The Champions League final is the 31st. For no other reason than to wish Thomas Muller and just see the best of him. I mean, that's another... We could go down the rabbit hole on that one, right? How's he been treated? If you look at the Bayern View, if you follow Liam and Steve on their channel, if you follow Danny from Always Bayern and Chelsea, he's in Milwaukee. I love it, man. Love Americans that love football. That's brilliant. And he's really captivated. He's very passionate about Bayern Munich. For those 3 people and for Thomas Muller, I'd love to see them in the final. I really would. Unlike Keegan, you know, they don't have to go to Middlesbrough and get a result, do they? They've got to go to Inter and get a result if they're going to keep that going. So, yeah, my point is there's all those bits of content that need doing, and then we'll get round to doing that Bundesliga 11 for the season. Yeah, absolutely. There'll be a season review show, obviously, yeah. So, and actually, any other ideas that you've got for other content, please bring it forward. I mean, we did a feature video in Arminia Bielefeld because that is a fairy tale running the cup. That's only the 4th side from 3rd Liga or below to have ever made a cup final. It'll be the first team ever from outside the Bundesliga to have won the trophy if they manage to pull that off against Stuttgart. We've done videos on Frankfurt, Bremen, but it's not live yet. A subscriber asked us to do a video on Fortuna Dusseldorf because I said, I've been there before, but I haven't set foot at the interchange. It's a nice interchange, slightly better than the one we've got at Hull. Probably on par with... What else has got an interchange? Donny? Yeah, Don Francisco is probably on par with that. So I was starting to do a video about Fortuna Dusseldorf. So if anyone's got any ideas, if you have, my friend, put on the shades, any ideas? Probably need to get a Discord going, but again, I'd feel embarrassed to make people come to that when there's only 2 of us rattling around in it. It's like being in a big mansion, isn't it, on a long table. Pass the salt. Doesn't seem worthwhile setting up a Discord just yet, but we have got a Twitter, X, at German Football Spotlight or at German Footy Spot, because that's the amount of characters that you've got to play with. But mostly here on YouTube, active on TikTok, making predictions and coming up with data because I'm a bit of a data nerd. I mean, this is a dream for me. Loved football as a kid, was obsessed with data and like storytelling, even though you wouldn't tell because this stream is now 3 hours long. But, you know, do enjoy trying to pull a story out of data is what I enjoy, and being terrible at FM. And I'll start streaming some of that as well. We got a Werder Bremen save on the go, which after 3 games in a DFB Pokal, well, technically we've drawn 1 and lost 3. That DFB Pokal game we did win on penalties because Michael Zetra was the hero and pulled off 3 saves. It was against a team from the Regionalliga, so could have been embarrassing if we'd have lost that one. But otherwise, yeah, there's your Bundesliga table. Munich at the top with 6 points over Leverkusen, who fluffed their lines. They could have closed that gap, but failed to do so. Frankfurt in third, leading the line above Leipzig, Mainz, Freiburg. There's your top teams in the European spots. And at the bottom, well, Bochum are at the bottom. Not quite at rock bottom. That's Holstein Kiel. Kiel, Bochum, Heidenheim, St. Pauli. I think it's between those 4. If those respective managers are honest with each other, it feels like it's going to finish that way. Probably not in that running order. I've got a feeling it'll end up with... I personally feel it'll be Bochum will finish bottom, Kiel, Heidenheim. That's how I think it'll finish, but we don't know. 5 games to go. It's exciting. Oh, and as you've known, because we've gone through the different matchups and the fixtures that are coming. Oh, it's exciting, man. Can't wait. Because there's a lot of teams that could impose a lot of trouble and could derail Champions League dreams, European Thursday night football with Pat Nevin dreams, and relegation. Anyway, we've got that to come. Thanks for joining us. Honestly, it means so much. Thank you. Put on the shades, man. That's really made my day. It really has. Gonzo, Craig here, signing out. We're back soon. The VOD will be live later on. We are off to watch Hull City this evening. Big game at home to Frank Lampard's Coventry City. Need that win to stay in the Championship. A quick note on Scott Parker. Wow. Joint top, 88 points. And he conceded 12 goals on the road. Or 12 goals all season. That's incredible, man. It really is. It's a bit like St. Pauli. Except one of them teams is going up and one of them's staying near the Reaper ban. Great weekend if you can afford to lose yourself. Thank you so much. Signing out now. Craig, Gonzo, gone. Cheers, put the shades on. Made my day. Catch you in the VOD. Thank you so much. Auf Wiedersehen.